Hello and welcome to Missed Checkpoints, the video game book club podcast. Today we're wrapping up our discussion of Ninja Gaiden Black. I'm your host Marcus, and joining me today, as always, are the homies. First off, we have Greg.
Yep.
Next, we got Dante.
How's it going, guys?
And last but not least, we got the homie Trevor.
What's going on?
So we're finishing up our discussion of Ninja Gaiden Black. If you remember part 1, we played through chapters 1 through 9. And so we are going to be picking up from chapter 10 through 16. So the back half of the game. I believe the three of us, me, Dante, and Greg, had got up to chapter 9. And Trevor, he was one chapter behind. I think he was still on 8 when we last met. So just want to quickly go back and ask Trevor, like, how did you think about chapter 9? I think you...
Well, he got to the tanks.
Yeah, I was close to the last boss.
So how did you feel about the tank fight, the double tanks, in chapter 9?
Well, I'm glad I finally figured out how to use the quick fire, because that was completely necessary. And,
did you not manual aim at all? For
no.
like the dudes in the turret?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
What a beast.
I don't know what it was, but it was just the quick fire. That was all I needed to beat that boss, to beat the two tanks.
Gotcha. Then what did you think about the boss after the helicopter?
You mean the helicopter boss?
Yeah.
Trash.
Trash as in, like, it was easy, or the fight was trash?
The fight was trash.
Why? Tell me why. I would like to know. Inquiring minds.
Manual aim. That's all I gotta say.
Wait. Just the aim? That was the only reason that fight was trash? The camera wasn't trash?
Well, that's why manual aim is trash, because the camera's trash. Like, the camera...
Think it's more of you being trash?
The camera just messes up so many aspects of this game. Like, it messes up aiming, it messes up platforming.
I wouldn't say it messes... Well...
It kills your vibe.
For sure.
Greg, how long did it take you to take out the helicopter, if we're being real? Was it less than a minute?
Like maybe a minute or two, something like that. It wasn't that bad.
Yeah. You can take half of his health off before he even moves.
Yeah.
How, Sway?
Also, like, for the first, I don't know, 2 or 3 times I tried to fight the helicopter, I was using the explosive arrows, and then I switched over to those piercing ones, and those take a lot more damage.
I honestly thought they were about the same. I don't remember now, but I thought they were the same. Either way, it didn't matter, because there was the crates on the other side of that platform, so you could, like, re-up on either of those arrow-wise, I should say. So, like, did you try to quick fire at all when you got to that boss?
I don't think it works against him. The helicopter, at least. I don't remember it, but...
Yeah, I think I tried, like, a couple of shots, but none of them hit.
So then, yeah, it was... Did it take a lot of attempts, or it just was a long fight for you?
It was just a long fight.
Okay, so
because I would get in situations where I would try to manual aim, but by the time I would manual aim, the helicopter would be shooting rockets at me, and I would have to roll out of the way.
By the time you get the camera to where you want to be, you want to shoot, the helicopter's moved, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I ran into that a lot. It actually took me a lot of tries. I think I was being stubborn and trying to quickfire because it was so successful or useful against the tank. But it was not at all against the helicopter. So I had to teach myself how to manual aim really quickly. But that was when the camera got really bad for me. Mostly when it did that attack where it flew over you and dropped the bombs. I always, for some reason, like the way the camera just like flips on you, and I'd always get disoriented and like accidentally run into the bombs. Alright, well, I just wanted to check in with you and see how you felt about it. It seems like I was the only person that like struggled at that fight. I hated that fight. It just took you a while to deal with, but I guess let's go into chapter 10, the aqueducts, and this is I'm gonna kick it to Dante just because he is way more familiar with the story of this game. But the aqueducts are supposed to be like a way to get to the Emperor's palace, like right outside of Tehran, right?
Pretty much. So, the monastery is ostensibly destroyed at this point, so Ryu needs to find a different way into the Empire, or the Emperor's Palace or whatever. So he goes underground and pretty much tries to find a different path through there.
This was actually it was a interesting level just because of like you're like in a sewer almost. I think the chapter starts with you dropping into a manhole like after that train crash, and you fight some of the same enemies you've been fighting before. They introduced these new enemies. I was calling them crocodile cockroaches, but they're these like fierce looking like bug like creatures that had tons of legs, and they would rear back and just hop on you and grab you and then pull you down to the ground and just start doing mad damage on you. So they weren't necessarily difficult to fight, like in the same way they only had one attack. It was just difficult because you would fight a swarm of them. So I think this is one of the few enemies where I think you would fight more than like 4 at a time or something like that. It just seemed like they were always there.
The thing about them is pretty much all of their attacks break your guard, so you just have to be very careful while you're fighting them.
You can't be in the middle of an attack, like, because you can't block, so you have to, like, like, do a couple of hits, block, do a couple of hits, block, right?
Yeah, essentially you can block one, and then it breaks your guard, and then you're pretty much open to stuff after that.
But that leads, you fight them, and it basically that level leads you up to a electric or thunderbolt worm. And these I mean, you end up fighting like 3 in this level, and it's like this huge worm that just comes out of the ground and has like a couple of different like lightning and physical attacks, and you're in a small confined space, and so like this is one of the few fights that I can think of off the top of my head where they have like a fixed camera, and it's kind of like in the corner, like of the you're in a square shaped room, so it's kind of in the corner and it's kind of locked. So the worm only comes out of one spot, so it just is in this one spot all the time, and it just attacks from that spot. So it's a little bit more manageable fight. Did you have any issues with this fight, Trevor? Just fighting the one worm?
The first worm I did, and that was simply because, like you said, there's a fixed camera, and it's not necessarily behind your character. So sometimes
off into the side.
Yeah, sometimes I would struggle trying to roll a certain direction. Like I would be trying to roll I don't know, like to the right, but I really needed to hold back or something. Like it was
down and towards you.
Yeah. It was just weird trying to get the hang of that. But then like I don't know, I guess the angle is also made for the boss, because you can tell they were really like paying attention to like the cinematography of the animation for the worms and the way they move.
I actually didn't have a problem with the camera for this one. It kind of like the effect it gives is like sometimes when you're playing a game and like you walk from one room to another, and then like they kind of want to make it like almost like a film, like, and so you walk into the room and then it shows you in that room from like a security cam perspective, and it's like you're maybe just walking down a hallway, and it switches that perspective, and it just kind of makes it look more cinematic, and that's kind of how I felt this camera angle was, and I felt it was high enough and gave you enough view of the screen as far as like what you could stand on, because this is electric worm, so there's a part of the level that's like in the water, and if you hopped into the water then you take damage or whatever. So I thought that it was high enough that it wasn't an issue with for me, and I'm guessing Dante and Greg, you guys, you have anything you need to add about this fight? I just figured you guys, it was easy for you too.
No, not really. Nothing I can add. I mean, I died there the first time just because like most of my deaths come in this game from me just being impatient. I just wasn't really paying attention to the pattern. But other than that, no, I didn't really have a big issue there.
I remember him being very difficult the first time I played through this game. But, yeah, after you realize the pattern, like, the worms only have 3 attacks. They have the grab where they go down the middle. They have a swing, which they can do from the left or the right. And then they have some type of projectile thing. So once you kind of realize that, they pretty much can't hit you.
It's a straightforward boss as far as the attacks, but like I said, I didn't have an issue with this fight. It was later on. You get a little bit further into this game, and you drain you're trying to drain the aqueducts to get, I guess, deeper into this cavern, and so you end up fighting. You get to a point and you have to fight 2 worms at the same time, and this is where I had issues because similarly to the fighting the one, they're in fixed positions, but now there's more water, so there's more room for error for you as far as like missing the platform you're on. And I swear that the camera was slightly lower, so like you could see less of the area that you could move on freely. So I had a huge issue dodging the little swing attacks because I couldn't tell the perspective as well with the camera being more level with Ryu.
If I had to suspect, you probably did it like Trevor, where when they swung, like they did their little swinging animation, what was your thing to dodge it?
Like, what did I do to dodge it?
Yes.
I tried to run towards the camera and time my jump to jump over it. So I would be running back towards where the camera was set and jump over the swing.
So you didn't care which way they were swinging, left or right. You still went.
Yeah. Like and that's I think what was throwing me off. So and like I was misgauging the distance and either getting hit going up or getting hit jumping down or coming down. So then what I tried to do was jump in the direction that they were coming from, if that makes any sense. So
It does, but like the advice I was given to Trevor was rolling is so much safer than jumping as far as dodging that attack.
Yeah. And so like what would happen is sometimes I would dodge it, but then I would land in the water. So I was still taking damage. So it was really hard to like micromanage the platform plus this camera, I feel like being lower, plus, the perspective. So, like, this fight took me a lot longer just because it was like, man, like... And then also, too, just the fact that you have 2 worms, it's 2 things you have to pay attention to. So, like, there was a couple times where one of the worms got that charge on me, and I was looking at the other worm, paying attention to that, and I get charged. And I think Trevor was having an issue. I thought that they weren't supposed to attack you at the same time, but Trevor said he was getting hit. I think with the thunderbolts.
Yeah, the projectiles. They
don't shoot at the exact same time. They will alternate.
I don't know. But, yes, Trevor. That didn't happen to me.
All I remember was they were tag teaming me.
It wasn't fair. They have no honor. Did this? So this fight was more difficult for you than the single one, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Because like with the single one, it took me a couple of tries, but I was at least able to get the attack patterns down. But then the second one, that's when it threw that monkey wrench in there, and it was just like, okay, you got this down. Now try to juggle 2 at once.
Times 2. Yeah. So I think we both had the same issue. Did you feel like the camera was any different, or I mean, like obviously it was the same type of camera, but did you notice if it was lower or whatever?
Not lower. I think it was coming from the other side. Like
it was coming from the other side. Yeah.
And even still, I wish, like especially with 2 of those, I wish it was down the center. That way, I could kind of see. I don't know, like the judging distance between the two.
Sure, I get that. I'm assuming no issue for the vets in this group.
Not with that fight in particular. Just I was gonna talk about the issue I kind of had with this chapter in general. So like, I think this is probably one of the longer chapters for me, just because I was kind of confused as far as where I needed to go at first. Because you start running around and you find, okay, well, I need these two these two items to basically lower or get rid of the water, start moving the water, but like I couldn't figure out where to go to get them. So that was like the first 20 or 30 minutes was me trying to figure out, okay, where am I going? And then after that, everything kind of just went in place. But initially, I was kind of put off by what I needed to do.
That's something I want to touch on, and we can maybe start touching on it now. But this level in particular it didn't help that this is probably, would you say, Dante, like one of the 2 longest chapters in the game?
I'd say this in the monastery.
Yeah.
In the caverns.
I see, and I didn't think I didn't have an issue with the monastery, because I guess you only fought the one. If I remember correctly, you only fight one boss, so it didn't seem as long. They threw a lot more new enemies at you, but like you only fought one boss. This one you fought the worm, then you fought the 2 worms, then you have another boss you have to fight, and on top of that, like one of my gripes with this game, and it was way more apparent in the second half of the game when they're throwing like so many like enemies and bosses at you, is that I just don't know where to go. Like once you've unveiled more of the overall map. And you realize, like, oh, I can go to Tehran, and if I go here, it goes here, and if I go here, it goes here. Like, I feel like the only really story beats you get are at the very beginning of the game when it tells you what the mission is. Does it really deliver more, not story, but, like, objectives? That's the word I'm looking for. I don't necessarily know what I need to do at all the time.
I think it just kind of goes with... This is definitely not like a Zelda-style game as far as like, hey, solve a puzzle. But they show you, it's like, okay, here's this pedestal. This pedestal needs this thing. So pretty much you just go around, find the thing, go back to the pedestal, and unlock something. So it kind of works the same way as keys do in a dungeon in Zelda. And I wouldn't say the map is as good as Zelda. I don't even use the map. I just kind of explore. But...
So I use the map, and I think that might be my issue is like there's no like indicators on the map to say like, okay, like in Zelda, I think in Zelda, right? If you find a specific item, you can see what doors you have gone through and what doors you haven't and what doors you need a key for, right?
Some of them might do that. I don't think they...
I thought there was their item you got in Zelda that would tell you like...
You can get like a compass and something else that'll show you like, hey, there are keys in these rooms or stuff like that.
Yeah, and I'm not even asking for that, but maybe like something you can mark like, okay, you've run into a platform, or not a platform, but like a... something that you can put an item you can interact with. And there'd just be some type of marker on the map. So that way you could be like, okay, that's the room I need to get back to. Because there was a lot of times where I'm like, okay, I got a piece. Can I use this piece? Or like, and 9 times out of 10 you can, but it's just a matter of getting back to where you were at, or just like figuring out what you need to do next. Like it would say, like, I think at this point you could, I think you see both of those stands that Greg was talking about, and it was like a blue pedestal and a red pedestal, and it was like, okay, cool, I need to find something to put on, whatever to put on this pedestal, but it was a matter of like, can I interact with this thing? What do I need to do? Where do I need to go? And I don't think they need to spell it out, but it was a little bit frustrating to be like, okay, what do I do now? Or especially like if you run into a room and you fight a bunch of bad guys, like I didn't want to do combat just for the sake of doing combat. I wanted to be like making progress towards the actual game, and like enemies, not necessarily in this level, but enemies do tend to respawn like around Tehran, and it was just kind of like I just want to make sure that the progress I'm making is meaningful progress and just not for nothing, you know?
Yeah, in that same vein, I had issues where I would come across what I needed to get to. Like, I would come across, say, that red pedestal, for instance, and I needed the key to unlock it. I would completely forget how to get back to that red pedestal because throughout the aqueduct, the rooms aren't straightforward from going from one to the other. Like, you can look at the map and it'll show you like, okay, this room is down this hallway, when in actuality it might be on the next floor up, and so you have to actually go around to the other room in order to use the stairs and get around to it.
Granted, the game is very, very small. Like, the entire aqueduct, you can reach any distinct point of it within like probably 3 minutes.
But
definitely.
But like Marcus said, I also didn't want to run into a respawn.
Oh, you can just run past them.
Yeah, I was about to say that's what I do.
I mean, but that's if you know what you need to do. Like,
I mean, like, there's general rooms, like the room where you the room connected to where the electric worm is. That's the main respawn point in that area, and you can just run past that 100% of the time.
I mean, you're not wrong, but it was just like, man, like, I just want to know where I need to go, and that was something that I was running into. And like, even like another thing that would have been great is if like you could see the save markers on the map. Like, that would have been useful. Like, show me where all the pedestals and the stuff that I can interact with. Like, just have some little key on the map that's, like a down arrow with an S for save point or something like that, or a book in an S. Like, there was so many times where I was like, oh, crap, I gotta, I gotta go in real life. It's time for me to, like, dip out. We're about to go somewhere. Oh, shoot, where's the save point? And I just gotta just run around looking for a save point that I know is close, but I just, like, I'm not saying every single save point. I'm saying the ones that you've already saved at in the past, especially when you're, like, going back to an area, like, that I don't remember where any of the save points were in Tehran except for the very beginning one, like when you first drop in. So I ended up having to run to that to save because that's the only one that I remember where it was at.
So I kind of agree with you on that point, but I feel like the only reason a lot of the things are like they are in this game is almost like an homage to like old school, like, like kind of beat 'em up side scrollers where it's just kind of like, all right, we're just going to make this intentionally like difficult. Like, we could do this, but then maybe they feel like that's taking a little bit of the difficulty or the skill out of the game of like memorization, I guess.
But even then, I don't think it's like Dark Souls where sometimes they just straight up hide save points. This one, like, I thought all the save points were relatively distinct.
Yeah.
So,
there's one in particular that the one in the underground. Remember when you flood the downstairs, and then there's an elevator, and I was on Discord with you. You said you should climb into that hole and go to the save point, and I would not have known there was a save point there.
Well, that save point's really for a different.
It's for later. It's for later in the game when you come back. Yeah. But like you knew about it because you had played before.
That was just like a quick hack for just in case you got stuck on Alma. Hey, here's this save that will save you maybe like a minute.
It was a little more than a minute, but yeah, like that was beneficial to know about that one in that particular instance. And like for the most part, it's like the issue that I ran into, and this is me as a baby gamer or whatever you want to call it, but like I was so unconfident, not confident in my combat abilities, that I didn't want to trigger more combat. So I tried to stay on the path that I needed to go, that I felt like I needed to go, and then that caused me to potentially miss probably some save points that I, would have if I was more confident in my combat abilities, and like then, because I like it was kind of like, okay, I have full life right now. If I go into that room, I'm probably gonna get jacked up, and even if there is a save point, I'll be at like 50% life. I have 100% life right now. I feel like I'm about to be at a boss, so I might as well go at him at 100%, then risk it, and may not even have a save point in there. It's like how I hit some situations. Like mostly in the first half of the game, I was a little bit better about it in the second half because I was a little bit more savvy in combat. But definitely in that first half, I was just like, there's probably a lot of enemies in there, and I'm just trying to get to.
I really think just about every save point is like at a mandatory point. The more I think about it.
I don't know about that.
I think there's one that you can miss on the way to a boss fight.
They're pretty like
I think
on the beaten path.
I think Dante is right. They're for the most part on the beaten path. I can probably think of like 3, maybe 4 at most that were like kind of on the side that you could miss. Because like I'm telling you, like that room with the train, like or that circular section with the train. Like
that one, yeah, you could potentially miss
yeah, and I almost missed that one because it was like, okay, I'm over here, all the enemies from the other side are coming to fight me, and I'm like, all right, cool, like I'm jacked, I'm jacked up right now. I don't really want to go to the other side and potentially have to fight because I saw there was a room on the other side. I was like, I don't want to fight anybody because I'm really low on life. And I was just like, let me go ahead and use some items to level up or like heal up and then go over there. And then when I go over there, there's a save point. I'm like, cool. But I wouldn't have gone if I didn't have the healing items. So I do think you're right, Dante, for the most part. Like, I can think of maybe, like I said, 3, maybe 4 that weren't. But I do think they are, for the most part, along the normal path that you would go along. But like, I just wish there was a way to like have them marked after you visited them.
That's fair.
So that way you could, easily get back to them because there's a lot of backtracking in this game as well. And especially like just playing in shorter segments. Like if I played a chapter in an entire sitting, then that's one thing. But going back, like especially like this chapter we're talking about, the aqueducts. That was a long ass chapter, and you're in so you're going back and forth, and it was easy to get mixed up where you were at, especially going between like the 3 different levels of the aqueduct as well as all those different rooms. Like it was kind of sometimes easy to get lost.
I get what you're saying. Like I feel like the aqueduct in specific had like a really great save point where it's just literally at the bottom level, right in the middle of the big door you have to go to. But I can see, like, from me and Greg's perspective on a lot of this game, like, when I told you I could beat this game in 6 hours if I needed to, and you were just like, that seems impossible.
You said 5.
I went down to 5. At first it was 6, and then I'm like, I could probably actually do it in 5, which I still do think I could do. And I'm pretty sure Greg could. If he skipped the cutscenes and stuff, he'd probably agree it's about a 5 or 6 hour game, right?
Yeah, I think once you get used to it and you kind of know the patterns, it's doable.
The save points to us are like, if we die, we only lose 5 minutes max for real. And versus you guys, where it's like, oh my god, that's like 20 minutes of gameplay. It's like forever. But once you kind of get efficient at the game and just have a vision of like what to do and where to go, things speed up drastically. So I think that's why the save points are kind of a non-issue to us.
Me and Trevor just don't have enough hair on our chest when it comes to this game.
I mean, you guys just put some more stick time in. Go back to the lab.
Go back.
Right. We gotta go back.
Hey man, hard mode's the definitive way to play the game.
Hey man, I'll be the non-definitive.
I got my money's worth.
And some. So let's get back into the story. So if you get further in Aqueduct and you drain the water, you end up fighting this boss. You end up, what is it, a sword that you pull out of the ground and it wakens up this boss called Pazu. And he's basically like some pterodactyl, like fossil. Is that like a good?
Yeah, like Aerodactyl Ninja Gaiden style.
Aerodactyl cross the Xenomorph from Alien. But yeah, he has some cool attacks. Like he has a dash move or, or charge, I guess you could say. You're fighting him in a fairly large room. I think this might be one of the bigger contained rooms that are contained boss fights that you fight. But he has the stomp, he has the double stomp, he has fireballs that he throws, or fire blast, I guess you could say, a whirlwind, and he has a good amount of attacks.
The lasers.
Yeah. So he's a cool fight actually. I did die a couple times, but I thought it was a cool fight. Like every time he took his life down, like I want to say like 25%, he would kind of stumble over, and you could hit him for big combos. And I actually appreciated that part about this fight. It kind of made it a little bit easier, and I'm like, dang, like I think this is the first boss that had something like that where you could like actually get a legitimate combo in. Like I guess maybe Alma as well, but whenever you could like actually do some combos on a boss, I was like, okay, I like this boss. So I did die a couple times trying to figure out how to dodge his attacks and everything, but I did enjoy this boss fight. He was a lot easier for me than the worms. He was easier than the worms. How do you feel about it, Trevor?
I barely scraped through on this boss. Like, I think I only gave it maybe 2 or 3 attempts, and then I just went all in and just used all of my elixirs and my...
Oh, I mean, I did too, but he was fun. Oh, not elixirs, Nimpos. I used my Nimpos.
Yeah. And
Trevor used both.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, whenever I do that, I feel kind of like I'm cheapening the experience, I guess.
Nah.
Okay, well, thank you for verifying that. Because, like, I'll just use everything in my arsenal to just, like, barely scrape by. And then I'll end up using, having nothing when I start off on the next chapter. But
that's how I feel on every boss where it was like, you got to be able to flying swallow. Or, like, that's the only move you use. I'm like, at no point would I have ever used this move. And, like, if nobody had told me how to do it, I would have fought the boss, like, straight up. And, like, any boss where it was like, you just use Flying Swallow, I was like, man, like, how would I have beaten this boss? Like, playing my way, you know? Or did you ever feel that way?
yeah, I think that was one of the things we talked about on the last episode, because, I don't know, this game seems like it's very open-ended, but it also has, like...
This is how you do this!
Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, that was something we touched on last time, and I just wasn't sure. Like, I felt like as you were talking about this game when you were playing it in the chat, I felt like you were kind of saying the same thing that I was saying at that time, where it was like, man, like, there's so much ability and things you can do in this game, but I feel like I'm lessening my experience by doing this thing that I know is super effective because everybody's told me it's super effective. And, like, yeah, sometimes I kind of... fought with that with myself, where it was like, man, like I would be using this weapon at this point if nobody had told me this other thing was good, you know?
Like, there was one instance where I think Dante was watching my stream, and I switched to Izuna. Is that the
That's
Nympho?
Inazuma?
The fire one or the lightning one?
No, the lightning one.
In Inazuma or something like that.
Yeah, I switched to that one. And every time I used it, it was like the enemies ended up giving me another Nimpo charge.
So it was a free attack.
Yeah.
That's tight.
Yeah, he got that like during a Fiend challenge, the one where you fight the Cyclops things or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Little flying dudes.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, man, his Nimpo drops are OP right now.
But it did that every time I used that Nimpo. Like, any enemies, like, where I had a cluster of them, and I used that, I'd just end up getting another charge.
I can say that definitely for the fish. Definitely for the fish.
Yeah.
What about you? How did you guys like... Do you guys like the Pazu fight?
Yeah, I don't think I have, like, any, like, like, profound comments about it. But
do you like it, though? Like,
Yeah, I liked it.
Like, on normal, it was simple, but when I fought the dude on hard, he was giving me a pretty difficult time. just because there are a ton of I think the imps accompany him when you're fighting him on hard.
Wow.
And it makes it very hard to concentrate on just dealing with his stuff because he has all those AoE attacks. So generally you try to take out like the smaller enemies, then go for the bigger one, but he just made it so hard since he could hit you pretty much wherever he wanted to. And that's where I learned like the unlabored flawlessness, the fully upgraded wood sword is really, really OP if you're low on health. It literally does 4 times the amount of damage it normally does. And I pretty much did 2 combos and ended him.
That sounds awesome. If only I were to play again.
You had that much money.
He's only boss. Huh?
You had that much money by that point in the game?
Yeah.
You definitely get a lot of what's the name of the currency in this game? I guess
Essence.
Yeah,
Oh.
you definitely get a lot of that because there was times where I would even like on some of the later boss battles, I would just run through all of my healing items and then I'd just go back and just buy it all again. I'm like, all right.
Were you kind of astonished how much healing stuff you get in this game?
Oh, it's
I
a
don't
lot. I
remember
don't
it being so
remember
free.
it being. Yeah, I was about to say, I don't remember getting that much when I
Stop.
first played it. But
I won't
No, you
sit
get a
here
ton.
and let you guys lie on me and Trevor's good name. We needed all that healing. We were grateful for it.
I watched Trevor use literally 13 things against Alma and then die to some pill bugs moment. That was so good. Oh, man. We'll get to that.
Hater. Alright, well, that ends chapter 10. Chapter 11. This chapter sucks. It's a lot of swimming. It's like the water world of Ninja Gaiden. And I realized, I noticed it earlier, but swimming in this game is trash. Just because, you can only go forward, up or down. You can't really go at an angle. It's kind of hard to explain. So it makes it like you have to comprehend the controls of swimming in order to get to where you want. And this chapter forces you to do that. And then there's you're basically just collecting parts to unlock some door. It's this chapter. It's so frustrating that they're swimming the entire chapter, and you constantly have to go up for air because your oxygen gauge is going out or whatever, and it goes down pretty quickly. There's drones that are trying to shoot at you whenever they spot you, plus these large fish that are patrolling the area, and you couple that with the fact that you're trying to swim down to find parts or whatever you're trying to collect. And I feel like the developers knew the swimming in this was not going to be fun. So they gave you an item halfway through or a little, maybe 2/3 of the way through, an oxygen cylinder that could force you to breathe underwater indefinitely, which I felt like was the worst. It was the dumbest design decision to instead of fixing our swimming, we're going to make it so you can just stay underwater for forever, which is such a, in my opinion, lazy / half-assed solution to a bigger issue, where it was we could fix the swimming, but that'll take too long, so let's just give him this oxygen cylinder and we'll call it even. We're square then. I know that I bet Dante and Greg don't feel that way, so I'm going to kick it to them first. How wrong am I, and how right are you guys?
I do think that the swimming sucks, but I think it's just kind of a product of the game at the time. I just don't know of any other game at the time that just had maybe
Modern
other than
swimming.
even Mario 64, if you want to even go. I guess that's a little bit older, but it's not like that had the best swimming either.
Mario
right?
64 came out 9 years before this game, and
hey.
I feel like Mario 64 has better swimming than this game. And I'm not saying that to say that I legitimately feel like Mario 64's swimming is better than Ninja Gaiden Black swimming. I'm not.
They're probably like on par.
It's not. I mean, it sounds like shots fired, but like it's maybe because I'm not necessarily nostalgia, but I have more of a reference point with Mario 64. But I just felt like just the fact that there was 2 buttons, you could do one button to like paddle, and then one to actually swim. And in this game, it was just like depending on how hard or like if you tapping A versus holding A. But it just didn't seem like it seemed like you had to always have your finger off the left thumbstick in order to go forward, which is like counterintuitive to like I can't think of another.
Wait,
what?
Oh, okay. You said finger off the left.
Yeah,
so
you can't. It has to be at neutral position in order to go forward.
Well, I mean, you can go up forward or down forward, or neutral.
For me, it was either up, down, or forward. It wasn't up forward or down forward.
I felt like even when you went up, it was always at like an angle. You couldn't necessarily.
It was like 80 degrees. It wasn't like 45. It was like 80 degrees.
It wasn't as big of a stroke forward, but it was still in that direction. So, like up and down are more adjustments. And then you want to do A once you have the correct.
But like the issue that I was running into is like you're swimming into tunnels and caverns and things, and it requires a precision that the game doesn't allow you to have. In addition to like, I mean, I was like constantly low on oxygen, and it's like, holy crap, I either need to go up for air or like just it made it more tense than it needed to be. It was just kind of like, I don't think the game is doing this. Like, it's not like it should be easy for me to get to where I need to get to.
It would be easier for me to swallow the swimming criticism if it was more about like the swimming combat stuff, because I don't think that's great. But I think the straight up swimming's fine. Like, it's not great, but I never really ran into any issues with just the swimming.
And even like the oxygen tank thing, I almost feel like they do that as kind of like an asshole maneuver, because it's just kind of like you see the one area that you need to go to get something, and it's like, oh, well, I'm going to go try and go this way. I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough air to get over there, and then you do it, and you're like, oh, well, I ran out of air and I died here, and then you realize, oh, I could have just went over here and got this oxygen tank first, then came back and got the item.
Yeah, it's a means to solve a puzzle.
Yeah. So, but, yeah, I mean, I do agree that the swimming sucks, but I don't think there's enough of it where it's like a huge deal, I guess.
Is this the last time you swim?
It's one of the
last
last
times. You might swim for like a minute or two.
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong, there's not... It was okay until there was an entire chapter dedicated towards it. And that's when I realized, oh, this is worse than I thought it was. Where it would be...
You also said this chapter took you a super long time, right?
I don't think this was the chapter that took me that long. I think it was the next chapter.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the next chapter. But yeah, like it was. And I actually didn't die from drowning, but I almost did a couple times. And I didn't do the puzzle and then die, then find the oxygen thing. I actually found the oxygen thing first, so I didn't die at that puzzle. But I was just like, this is really silly. Like, why don't they just give that to you in the beginning? And I understand why they don't. But it's just super frustrating because it was like, why even put a puzzle that you can't do? Like, it's just...
It's a sequence thing.
I know, but it's just... Trevor, how do you feel about swimming in this game?
Man. Like, I don't... This entire level...
Man,
it's like filler.
I don't want to say it was a waste of time.
It's filler.
But
besides
like,
fighting Doku, it's filler.
There's no combat. Like, I was thinking there was going to be like some kind of combat underwater.
You didn't like those fish fights?
Fish fights.
You get a spear gun and you can shoot those giant fish, but you don't even have to.
Oh, was that what that was for?
Yeah, you don't even have to fight them.
Oh, wow.
You don't have to.
Like, I remember picking it up, but I'd never had time to equip it because I was just looking for where to go, and then I figured out you could just swim right past those shark things.
But
look at you guys with your speed running strats.
I mean, like, I don't get me wrong. I shot all the fish because I wanted to use the spear gun because I thought it was like a cool weapon. But even then, like, it was just like, okay, like it's still like I still was getting bodied by the drones. So like that didn't really help.
I just
I think
figured there was going to be more aiming with the spear gun, and
no, you could quick fire, and it actually, I don't think it missed. It was like they decided to like turn the slider all the way up to 100% accuracy with the spear gun, but with the bow and arrow, it was down. It was still at 15%. Salty, salty, salty. Um, but ultimately, you finish all this stupid swimming, and you get
Actually, you know what? No, we're gonna rewind that. I wish that the spear gun had manual aim. If we're being honest.
okay. You can wish it. You can't.
'Cause
No takebacks.
There's a lot of times that I actually miss those stupid fish.
Are you serious?
So I figured you have to hit. Yeah.
Were
You
they
have to
too
at least
far?
hit right trigger to get it to aim at them.
Was it like a distance thing, or?
It's just straight up. If you just hit B, it doesn't auto lock on. But if you hit RT, then it will start to trigger like the lock on property.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah, I never missed with that thing, so I just assumed it was okay. Well, there's that. Yeah, the chapter ends with you fighting Doku, the ninja samurai dude that has been the. I guess he's been the person like in charge of the Vigor Empire, right? The person that's pretty much.
He's the guy that got the Dark Dragon Blade from your clan at the beginning of the game.
Okay, yeah.
And killed you. He killed you.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you fight this dude, and you fight him in this huge, like, it's almost like an Asian style, like, no, I'm not gonna say that. It's almost like just a big walled off, like, almost like Colosseum style place. It's kind of cool. It's just like a big sand pit that you're fighting him in, and with walls and everything, so you can like run off the walls and jump off the walls or whatever. He has like a variety of attacks. He has a breathes fire. He has like some slashes. He has some combos where he does like 4 or 5 attacks in a row. He has a power slam, a command grab. He can throw his sword. I mean, he has a lot of moves. I think he's like one of the. I think he has maybe up there with the most moves in the game. And the only takeaway I had with this is this dude blocks everything. Dante was saying that, I think Dante said in our chat that you could basically attack him after he does an attack to get damage. But like I was like just spamming Flying Swallow. I would Flying Swallow, he would block, you bounce off of him, land really close. Then I would roll dodge his attack, jump, Flying Swallow, rinse, repeat. And I'm talking like 20 times in a row before I did any damage.
You
and
should try
even
an
like
actual attack.
that isn't an actual attack. It's X plus A, X and A plus Y. As in, it's pretty good. I don't know if you know, but I was also trying to use projectiles. Your ranged weapons, and they didn't really do that much damage. And even like your Ninpo, the fireball that auto locks on, like he could block that and not take any damage as well. So like this fight took me, like I had more difficulties with Doku than with Alma. Where like I think I maybe took me 2 or 3 tries to fight Alma. Doku, I was easily like at least a dozen attempts to fight him. And I just, like, I could not get any damage on him. I couldn't understand why. And I changed my strategy up as well. And it just was like, anytime I could, in my mind, hit him, I was either too far away or he would block. And I was just like, what the hell is up with this? How do you feel about this fight, Greg? How do you feel about the Doku fight?
So I didn't have like a super hard time against him. I mean, it's like I feel like with all the bosses, there's like sometimes where you'll get a few like what seem to be kind of like cheap. They get cheap shots in on you where it's like, okay, well, it looks like he's open. I'm gonna start swinging on him, and then maybe you overcommit to a longer string, and then he kind of hits you. But I mean, I didn't find it like incredibly difficult. It was just kind of like, all right, I'm just gonna try and play this super safe, take a couple shots at him when he's open, then kind of back off, just kind of roll dodge for a little bit, then try and look for another opportunity. So I just kind of played it like that. I mean, again, like I definitely died a couple times, but it wasn't like super crazy.
What about you, Trevor? How'd you feel about it?
It was okay. It was decent. It reminded me of like the Jetstream Sam, I think was the boss from Metal Gear Rising.
I thought you hated that
The one
boss.
with the dog.
After I learned his attack patterns, it wasn't that bad.
Boss took you like 4 days to beat.
No, that was Sundowner.
Oh, right.
But that boss, I don't know, it took me a few tries, but because, it kind of gives you time to reset before attacking, or before they attack. I don't know, it's like it gives you an opportunity to read what they're going to do next.
I mean, it's just based off the startup of whatever move he was doing.
Yeah.
I gotcha. I tell you how mad I was. He did his little stab thrust sword, like where he stabs you in your gut and then he sucks your life. And then when I saw he killed me with it and re-healed himself, I was so
man, he sucked
mad.
you off to death?
He sucked me to death. Yeah, like my soul left my soul left my body. But I had a a talisman ninja down, and I lost it, and I immediately turned off my Xbox and just left the room. Like, that was maybe my only rage quit, where I was just like, not only did this fool kill me, he re-healed himself. I was like, I'm done. I'm done.
You only have one rage quit?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. There was a couple of fights where it was like, I lost to something, then I was like, I kind of laughed to myself and said, I'm done for today. But like, that was my only rage quit, where I was like, immediate instinct was, all right, get up, turn on my Xbox, I'm leaving the room. Like, usually the other times I like went to go do something, like I got on my computer and like played a different game. This time I just like, I'm done.
How many times did y'all hear me or see me write in our group chat? I'm not finishing this game. I'm done.
I really didn't think you were going to finish. I'm not going to lie. There was like 3 or 4 distinct points.
Who did you think was going to get further, or who did you think was going to quit, me or Trevor, like initially? I know you said like...
So, Trevor was talking a good game up until Chapter 3, so I was like, yeah, he's going to have an easier time with this game than Marcus overall.
Oh, Chapter 5 was the worst.
Yeah, and then once the dragons came around and then he had to fight the Hydrocubus, I'm like, this might be too much for the poor guy. But no, like, the role reversal happened, and then both of you finished it. I was really surprised. The person that I lent, like, my original Ninja Gaiden to, he quit on the worm, so honestly, I was expecting one of you to quit when that happened. But both of you persevered.
I was going to quit on the platforming.
Trevor was going to quit at the volcano. Oh, man.
The part I didn't even know you could die at.
Really? Okay, well, we'll get there. Speaking of volcanoes, let's talk about the caverns.
Wait, I want to
yeah, actually,
give a
you're
little
right.
bit of input onto the Doku.
Yeah, what's up with you?
I really, really, really like that fight because it seems like the Mirai fight is a one-on-one, but the Doku fight just seems like this very balanced fight against another individual with a different skill set.
When you say one-on-one, you mean like you actually felt like you were fighting like an AI, or like somebody on your level. You weren't fighting some huge beast, right?
Yeah, it almost felt like somebody went to a character select screen and he's like,
"Oh, gotcha,
I chose Doku, and we're just gonna do this." Granted, on hard, all the boss fights have people with them, but on normal, like, when he did his little like combo attack, I'm like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then he does his heavy hit, and you just time your roll under the heavy hit, and that's guaranteed damage. So it was just like learning all of his patterns and being like, okay, well, here's where he has recovery frames. Let me attack now. And just kind of dissecting his moveset was a lot of fun.
Gotcha. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the fight. I hated it. And it was probably like one of my starting with that Doku fight, but really we can even say that entire level, chapter 11, I didn't really feel, and then it leads into chapter 12, which is the caverns, and immediately
Where the walkthrough, where you got beat by a puzzle.
I got beat by a puzzle. Like you have to. There's actually a puzzle. Right in the same room that you kill Doku, like another door opens up. You hit a switch, and these platforms come out, and you basically have to. You see that I have to get to this highest part of this outskirts of this sand pit, and you have to pull a lot. There's a lot of platforms and that you have to pull, and a lot of platforming, and I maybe did it for 10 minutes, and I could not figure it out, and I ended up having to consult like a walkthrough. And the most frustrating part was I did everything that I was supposed to do. It was just that you pull one and then you put it back, and I didn't put it back because you have to do it in a certain order. So because I didn't put it back, then it kind of messed everything else up. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, cool. And then I clear it out. All right, finish the puzzle, leave. And then I was like, let me actually go ahead and save it. And I jump down, save it, go back into that room, and I'm immediately put in one of those wave-based, like, once you get back into the sand pit, you fight the waves of, what do you call those when you fight waves of enemies?
The Fiend challenges?
Yeah, and it's the Fiend challenge with the Fiends. And the dinosaur Fiends. So you have to fight 60 of those.
Oh, no, I would have quit on that part.
I was so frustrated. Like, I ended up beating it, but actually, no, it took me 3 tries. But, like, because I had saved outside of the sand pit, every time I walked in, they started spawning, and they blocked my path to get onto the. So it wasn't at least for me super easy to like just run past them, because there was platforming there, and if you messed up, you fell back into the sand pit, and then they would be there attacking you. So then I just ended up staying and fighting, because I'm like, well, if I kill them all, I'll get something out of it, right? And you get like one of those 1,000 lives of the gods or whatever, I think is what you get.
Oh, that's pretty nice.
So it's like it's beneficial, but it was just like super like it was it was whack. And then you go from that, and then you get to this another section, and you literally fight another Fiend challenge, and it's the Wolverine Fiends. So like within the first, literally like game time, 5 minutes of this chapter, I had fought like 120 enemies. And yeah, I was just like, man. And so like this chapter ended up taking me about 2 hours, 20 minutes to beat. So this is one of the longest chapters for me, and on top of all my dying and stuff like that. But ultimately, I actually didn't mind this chapter. Like, being in the caverns was like one of the most memorable experiences in this game. I felt like specifically the ice cavern and like the puzzles in the ice cavern, that was like maybe one of my probably most memorable like / favorite environment in the entire game. Just super unique environment. I like the ice caverns and the airship from the chapter 3. Those are probably like my 2 favorite levels. So yeah, the ice caverns were really cool, really memorable. And then I didn't really care for the volcano stuff, mostly because there was a lot more platforming. I did not have as much issues as Trevor did. So what were your issues with the volcano parts, Trevor? Was it solely camera or?
Wait a minute. Are you talking about like the magma caverns?
He's just talking about lava, not the volcano.
Okay, the magma caverns?
Yeah, the magma caverns.
Yeah, it was mostly camera, and I guess I didn't know how to handle being in the lava, Because Don,
Yeah, he was literally making it worse for himself.
Oh, was he jumping when he got
Yes,
into it?
all the
yeah.
time.
You didn't
Yeah.
notice you were losing like chunks of life every time you
I
landed?
didn't think there was a difference.
Oh, gotcha. You didn't want to stand to find out. I respect it.
It's like, I gotta get out of this lava. It's hot. Oh, but the puzzle part that you had just talked about, that was when the game started getting fun.
Define fun.
Decent platforming, a little bit of figuring things out, going from one point to another.
See, this is all integrated into the combat if you do it right.
No.
Wait. What puzzle? What puzzle are you talking about?
Where you have to get up to the top of the after your fight with Doku.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
The part you used the walkthrough on, so you didn't experience the fun.
That's right. I did not experience the fun. I thought you were gonna say like the puzzle where you run from one side of that tilt-a-whirl like seesaw to the other side. I'm like, that's not a puzzle.
I thought he was talking about like putting the ore into the thing. I'm like, that's not a puzzle.
That was cool though.
I don't know how to do that.
It was cool. Just the concept of like, oh, if you get this thing started and it melts this path and you unlock a new section of the map or whatever. I dug it.
Of course, you probably had all the ore pieces by the time you got there, right?
Man, I have like 6. You only needed 4, and I had 6.
Yeah, I had 2 left over after I got the cog.
But yeah, I just want to know what your issues were with the caverns, because I had a couple of issues with the magma caverns. It was mostly when you were in that big room with the 2 fiends in the lava, and you had to get from one side to the other. I always just ended up jumping into the lava and just skipping the platform in the middle. I was just like, I can't. When I try to get to it, I always fall in the lava. So I'm just gonna jump in the lava and run to the other side. That's what I kept doing. But you end up fighting a couple of different bosses. You fight like this like Yeti creature that does a lot of flipping, or a sloth or whatever. That boss was kind of like, you didn't like that boss, Trevor?
I just meant your description.
It is a sloth, right?
We all know what
like
that
a penis
was.
worm.
It's a flipping sloth.
That thing was gross.
But that boss was pretty easy. I just really, unless you guys want to talk about it, we can just kind of skip over it.
No, I don't really have anything to add about it.
Yeah. And then
Trevor panicked the first time he fought it, but he was good after that.
when doesn't Trevor panic?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
And then after that, you fight a fireworm, which it's very similar to the electric worm, just attacks you with fire instead of electricity. There's only one, so it's at that fixed camera again. This time, instead of shooting like a lightning ball at you, it shoots like a fire hoop that you got to jump through. But really, other than that, the attacks are identical.
You
Do
can't.
you guys have any issues with this boss?
You can't dodge the little swipe attack by jumping over it.
Yeah, you can.
I wasn't able to. At least not the way I did with the electric worms.
Huh? Weird.
Like it
Yeah.
it hit me every time.
I started doing Nimpo though. I know that. Nimpo was like, man, I can't dodge. Let me just go ahead and just become invincible. That was my get out of jail free card. And then they had like a timing challenge right after that, where you had to quickly hit a switch and run through this section before the lava started back up or something like that. It was really weird. Platforming sequence that was timed, and I think this is really the only one in the game, and I'm like, man, I wish there was more of this in this game to kind of make use of the fact that you're
Bro,
playing
do you want
as a
Trevor to
ninja.
quit right now?
I mean, I'm not saying that it was. I just mean sequences where it was like this, where I didn't necessarily have to be as tight, or oh, if you fall, you're gonna die because you're in lava or whatever. I just mean in the sense of it'd have been cool to have a little bit more time trial-esque challenges in this game. If you're playing as a ninja, let me use some of my speedy nifty craftiness, you know?
I think from the probably 3 or 4 hours I watched Trevor play this game, that was the closest he was to quitting right there.
I told you
Really?
it's always the platforming parts. But honestly, had that been in any other game, I would have been okay with it. But because it was this
enslaved.
because it was this one, and you have to use the right trigger to control the camera angle, that's what just frustrated me to no end.
Interesting.
He literally did it for about 20 minutes.
Hey, he just wanted to get the world record. And last but not least, you fight the flame dragon, which is like this huge dragon that's bore out of a volcano pit or whatever, and you're on like these platforms running around it, and does all the classic dragon attacks like the fireballs, the swipe attacks, bite attacks. How did you guys feel about this fight? And I'll start with you, Dante. Is this a memorable fight for you? He seems like he's like one of the more like difficult bosses in this game.
I remember him being very, very difficult, and I always had an issue with him before. But like once you learn his 3 or 4 attacks, he's really not that bad. He has a flame barrier. He has his fire breath thing. He's got his bite, and I think he might have
the one that rises like platforms or something.
The platform rising doesn't do damage though, so he really just has the bite, the flaming breath, and the barrier. And pretty much like every boss in this game, once you learn how to dodge those attacks, there's not really too much to worry about. I also did learn, this is from the speedrunners that joined my Twitch stream or whatever, that you can jump on his head and trigger like this sequenced QTE of sorts. So that was pretty cool because I didn't know there was anything like that in this game.
I thought you hate QTEs.
It wasn't a QTE because there's no like actual button press for it.
There's no prompt, so how do you do it then? Do you just like mash X or something, or?
Pretty much, like, Ryu jumps on his head and then the dragon gets all angsty and stuff, and it just kind of implies that you're supposed to slash him.
Oh. Okay. Is it cool? Did you end up triggering it, or you just watched the video on it?
No, I ended up doing it once, and honestly, it wasn't the easiest thing to do. You have to do the jump just right.
Is it when he does his chomp down attack that you can actually do it, or?
No, it's when he gets really tired. Like after he does about 3 or 4 attacks, he like starts breathing hard and puts his head there so you can attack him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you can jump on his head.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, it was pretty neat. Just because like
an Easter egg
that's
almost.
a thing exclusive to that boss.
That's cool.
Does it do more damage than just like attacking him when he's like kind of in that resting period?
I think it does a little bit more, but you can do a pretty good amount of damage just from him being in.
Does he like shake you off, or how do you get off? Like,
I think you just like you stab him in the head, then just do like a ninja jump off of him onto the platform.
Oh, so he like otherwise he would flip you into the lava or something, or?
Yeah,
okay.
Pretty much.
Okay, I thought maybe you were hinting that like once you get on top of there, he can't do anything about it, and you just
no, it's not like a one-hit thing, but it might
something.
take like a third of his health or something like that.
So you didn't whack him to death?
Nah.
Dang. How do you feel about the fight, Greg?
It was okay. Like pretty much like Dante was saying, it's you basically just kind of figure out what what the pattern is, and then you just kind of go from there. I do remember having like difficulty in the first time I played the game, and not being as hard this time. But yeah, nothing too wild.
Gotcha. Trevor, this is you were streaming on Mixer when you were at this part, so I actually got to tune in a little bit and watch you play. How did you feel about it? I remember you having to use, I think this is like when I finally saw your strategy in action of use every single elixir in my inventory.
I don't think I used that many.
Buy 10 potions, use 10
Did I use that many on this one?
You used everything, because you started the next chapter and you're like, No, I'm good. And I'm like, bro, no, you need to go to Muramasa now.
Oh, well, I survived. Because I think I beat him on my second attempt, didn't I?
It took you a couple tries. I don't remember how many, but I did remember. I could have swore, wasn't this the chapter that you died right after? Or the
No.
beginning of the next chapter?
No, that was
that's
the
Alma.
bone dragon. Oh, yeah, it was that chapter too.
Yeah, you died at the beginning of the chapter, and then you were like, I'm done.
Yeah. That-
But at least he had a save, because there's a save right after the dragon.
Oh, okay. But the fight was, like, I mean, did you enjoy it?
it was okay. Like, that's
The boss.
I mean, it took an unbelievable amount of damage. That was my only gripe against it. But as far as like fighting on these, these platforms that can raise and lower, and like I never got into situations where I would see him move from platform to platform because I was really going to one single platform, that one in the middle.
Yeah.
But I think that layout was pretty cool.
Gotcha. I didn't really have too much difficulty. I think I maybe died once or twice. It was mostly just like ninpo management, really, to make sure a couple times I either missed or he blocked. So just making sure I got the most amount of damage I could when I could with my sword, and then the rest of the time making sure that my ninpo or my arrows or whatever were doing the amount of damage that I needed to be doing, and I was dodging. So it was pretty straightforward, boss. Chapter 13, The Fiendish Awakening. This was, I think, a short chapter, actually. Like, you are back in Tehran, and this was another chapter where I just had no idea what I had to do. There's some statue in the beginning of Tehran when you first got into it that said it had some type of, like, I don't even remember. It was, like, freaking 2.5 weeks later that I got, reread the text, and it didn't make any more sense. But apparently you're supposed to drop some talismans in, or tablets or whatever. I had no idea. I ran around Tehran a lot just trying to figure out what I needed to do. And I ended up having to look up at a walkthrough to figure out what I needed to do. So this was another chapter in this game, section in this game, where I was just like running around, like just trying to figure out what I needed to do. I was expecting me to like run into some type of cutscene to trigger a fight or something, and that would explain what I needed to do. But I don't recall seeing anything. So once I got to the walkthrough, and I was like, oh, I just need to put some pieces in here. You open up some freaky portal, and then you can like teleport, and you teleport back to your village that you were in chapter 2, and there you have like your round 2 with Alma, and I'm sorry, you start seeing like there's a lot of these circles around, those teleporting circles, so you basically go from, it's like quick travel at this point. You don't get to choose where it goes. It has a set location, but you go from Tehran to your village, and then I think you go from your village.
So, did you get the true dragon sword or mention it?
No, I did not. Go ahead, man.
Okay, well, pretty much you go to your village because the previous chapter, Ayane, I think, sent you to talk to Muramasa, and he's like, hey, your sword's good, but it's not quite good enough. You need to have this
jewel or something, right?
Jewel or whatever. And
that's
pretty much
why
you find
go to
out
the caverns. That's why you fight that sloth and that fireworm and they each have like an ice and a fire jewel that you augment your sword with, right?
No, those jewels are to unlock the door to the fire dragon dude.
Oh, okay, my bad.
But you find out that Kureha, the girl that Doku slays at the beginning of the game, I guess, she had the jewel that you needed for your dragon sword. So pretty much that's why you're returning to the village at that point. And pretty much you put it in the sword, you get the true dragon sword, which is kind of the ultimate weapon in the game. And then you go off to fight Alma.
My bad, yeah, what he said.
Does it matter if you have your sword upgraded all the way?
I've never actually tried. I'm assuming that you definitely get the True Dragon Sword because that's like a story beat. I couldn't envision anybody doing that unless they were just like trying to do some type of special run, like a level 1 Dragon Sword run or something like that.
For achievements. So the second fight with Alma, she's like way freakier looking, bug-like, still missing like the top half of her brain. This was the one time I tuned into Dante's stream. This was like when we were at part 1. He was streaming this, and I was talking to the speedrunners then with him. But this boss fight, what do you think about it, Dante? I think you were saying this is like your least favorite boss fight in the game, or?
It's definitely the hardest for me. Like, this is the one where I know I'm at least going to use a Great Spirit Elixir, probably.
Scrub.
I feel really bad, man. I feel so bad when it happens.
Just using one?
I know I'm better than that, but
one?
It happens every time.
Dang. You actually, when I was watching you, I'm not trying to call you out, but you used some talismans, too.
She always gets me because I'm like, no, I'm not going to use a talisman. and I'm not going to use any more healing
I
items.
was watching Dante, and like when he used the talisman and he had like her at one hit, he kind of like, I knew mentally he was like kicking himself and he would restart. Like he ain't lying.
Oh yeah, it's a hot reset the second.
He was serious. He's like, oh, I used the talisman, restart. And I'm like, bro, you were like one hit away, F that. But then like that's just how he was.
Even the streamers are like, bro, what are you doing restarting? I'm like, no man, it's a thing of honor.
Yeah. So I can vouch. Thing. I can vouch. The one time I was watching him play, he did restart like 2 or 3 times. So
yeah, and the fight is really interesting. Like, she has a lot of moves, and just having to react on the fly to what she's doing is really fun. But at the same time, all of her moves do so much damage.
Well, were you playing on hard, or that when I was watching it, was that normal?
So, I was playing on normal, but I might have used 1 or 2 like life upgrading items. I think I held on to the rest. So I had a really tiny life bar. So pretty much all of her moves could like one-shot me potentially.
Gotcha.
But yeah, like she has a pillar throw attack that always tends to get me for whatever reason. Apparently Marcus and Trevor can dodge it, but I just can't. The little purple beam thing she shoots at you. She still has her like dimensional command grab or whatever at this point, or was that just Alma 1?
No,
where she did like the thing under your feet.
The purple like lift command grab?
Oh.
Yeah.
I think she only had it in the first one.
No.
Yeah, I think she only had it in the first one. Now she just has the tail and she like scoops you up. 2 scoops, Haagen-Dazs.
Yeah.
And then she lands on the ground and charges you. And I think that's just about it as far as like her abilities. But she uses them very fast, and it's just kind of a pain to deal with her.
Okay. What about you, Greg? Do you have any issues with Alma Part 2? Redo?
Yeah, I definitely died here a good bit. Actually, I think this is probably the boss fight I died the most. Like, it was like maybe a good 10 or so deaths. And most of the time, I think at this point, I had 2 talismans. What else? Like a bunch of healing. I almost feel like I had almost all my healing items maxed out. But like, there was times where it would come down to like, all right, I've used everything and I've got it down to like maybe, 10%, and then I'll just dodge at the wrong time and just die and just have to start it over again. But yeah, I think this is like probably the hardest boss fight I had at this point.
How about you, Trevor?
Would you say that you have to go offensive against her? Because just hearing everybody's playstyle and stuff, I think you and me are more defense first type of people.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why it was harder for us to adjust.
Yeah, because the way I was doing it was I would just wait until... Because did anybody try attacking her while she was in the air? Because I just gave up on doing that. I don't know if there's
you could
like
eventually get her with the flying swallow, but it was very hard.
And I think that was the reason why, because I felt like every time I was trying to do Flying Swallow, it was either like she would just be invincible to it, and I just was like, well, I'm just putting myself closer to being hit by something else. So I'm like, I'm just gonna run away and wait till she gets grounded, and I would just kind of do the run slash attack, just get my 2 hits in, and then go back to dodging. Or if she stayed on the ground, I'd try and get like maybe another couple of those attacks in, and just keep running back and forth.
Yeah, that's the one thing I'll say about Alma 2. Like, every other boss in this game, I know there's at least one attack that they're open after. I never feel like that with Alma. Never.
Really?
Yeah, like even those times where I was trying to do the run slash attack, sometimes I would get clipped on the way in, or like I'll slash at her, but she'll slash at me at the same time, and we just kind of avoid each other.
She's so fast to do something. Like, she can grab you almost instantly, even after a running slash. Which, that's probably, like, the safest move in the game.
I see. For me, I ran into the same issue that you ran into, Greg, where, like you said, it was using the flying swallow, and like she'd block it, then you're just like point blank, and you don't want to be point blank on her.
Yeah.
So I was using a lot. Like I actually had a bunch of the elixirs that brought back your ki, so you could do more ninpos, and I was just using a lot of ninpos and arrows. And then when she, like you said, when she got on the ground, then I would started like using my sword on her. But like it was mostly like staying at range against her. You have any issues with her, Trevor?
Well, I think you saw all my issues, but
Well, sir, you see the evidence.
Actually, after I the next day after I cooled down and restarted it, I had to fight her again, and I didn't stop until, or I didn't finish her off until I could finish without using a talisman.
Okay,
So,
I see you,
and
Dante Jr.
I finally did it,
Uh-oh.
but I knew that time to go back and save, like backtrack to I think it was the ice caverns, and
Because the true boss, the pill bugs, were waiting for him right after.
Oh, you talking about the pyramid?
yeah,
Man,
that was when
Your favorite
that
part,
was when I
Marcus?
got busy with those flails.
I actually didn't mind the pyramid. Pyramid was cool. Like
No, I was being non-facetious. You were like, oh, that part's really cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
Then seeing Trevor die instantly in there.
Yeah, Trevor was
Just having,
getting
like, the best moment of my
swarmed
life.
By the pill,
I had the wrong
but-
weapon equipped.
I mean, you had the wrong mindset.
You still had the wrong weapon equipped. Why are you using flails against those dudes?
Because you can attack from all sides.
Bro, use the lunar, use your ultimate technique, and they can't touch
All
you.
you gotta do is just keep mashing flying swallow. You'll clear out the room eventually. I use that, or I use the heavy, the bill row or whatever, because that also.
Can we?
Huh?
Can we take a second and just talk about like what our weapon game is like at this point?
Okay, yeah.
I'm curious what everybody's using.
Definitely, because I think in chapter 1, or not chapter 1, part 1 of this, I think I was set on using the lunar because of like my play style. I was like, of the two weapons I got, the sword and the lunar, and then the nunchucks at that point, it was just kind of like the lunar has the most range and I can attack around me. But by the end of this game, like the second half, like obviously because I wanted to do a Zuna drop and flying swallow, I started using the sword. So I was mostly using the sword, and I actually hardly used the lunar at all in the second half. But then there were certain enemies that I would swap weapons for something else. So like I would I actually did pick the lunar against those big slow enemies, the ghouls. And then against the dinosaurs, the dinosaur fiends, I would choose the and these pill monsters, the crocodiles. I would choose the brill hoe, which was the two-handed heavy like sword weapon that did a ton of damage. And then I would use against a later enemy, Ghostfish. That's when I would use the flails. And I was mostly using the Kaitetsu, which is Doku's sword, because of the soul steal. Like it stole life. So I would use that sword more than I use the. Plus, you could throw it. So I use that more than I use the dragon sword, or whatever you want to call it, the true dragon sword. because of the.
You didn't know about the Soul Steel until
Yeah, I didn't know
late,
until
right?
you told me. Well, when
Okay,
I
and that was
saw
like
that,
your
I was
chapter
like, "That's
15.
tight." Yeah. So I only got to use, but I mean, I was still using that weapon because you could throw it. So I still like that about it. And then when you told me about the Soul Steel, I was like, "Oh, this weapon is cool." What about you, Trevor?
So, like you, for the majority of the first half, I used the Lunar until I learned that the Dragon Sword did more damage, and so I started using that. But then when I got to enemies, most of the fodder enemies, I ended up using the flails. And I think for those fiends, like the dinosaur fiends, I used the heavy sword. And then for all the bosses, I pretty much used the dragon sword.
Gotcha. What about you, Greg?
So for the most part, I guess my default weapon, for a while I was using the dragon sword. Then once you max out the, what is it, the Delabra? How do you say that?
The Brilho.
The Brillo.
So once I maxed that out, I found that to be like probably the easiest weapon to use for like just random enemies, because it's just like you counter them and it's just like a one hit kill. So it's
Counter,
just kinda,
slice in half. Counter,
Yeah.
slice in half.
so it's just like you just end up doing that for the most part. Every now and then, like later on, I guess not to get too far ahead. For like the fishes, you'd use the flails, and then maybe here or there, I might just kind of swap to something for a little bit of variety. But for the most part, it was just the true dragon sword, the dot, whatever that is, and the flails. So
What about you, Dante?
So, my playthrough on normal was mostly Dragon Sword just because I kind of just wanted to get back into the feel of the game. And I had the unique experience of having like speedrunners in my stream. So, they taught me a lot of stuff throughout the game. Like, I learned that the Gleaming Blade is pretty much objectively the best attack you can do with the Dragon Sword at all times. So, that was something that got implemented into my arsenal. And that one's just the 360 hold Y with the Dragon Sword. And pretty much it just does like this AoE type of thing, but it hits like probably 6 or 7 times as it does its thing. So that was really cool. Going on hard, I ended up probably switching to a 50-50 on the Lunar and Dragon Sword for the first half of the game. Like, most of the time I would use the Lunar because I'm honestly at the point where I think it's a better weapon right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I picked up the Kitetsu, and I happened to be in the stream, and I think I just made like a random off the wall comment or something like, "Man, I always wanted to use this sword because it looks cool, but it takes your health." And then somebody in the stream's like, "No, bro, it doesn't do that in Black." And I'm like, "What you mean?" Like, so in the original 2004 Ninja Gaiden, the Kitetsu would literally drain your health as you used it. And I guess they expected you to use the drain attack or whatever to get your health back, and that was how it was balanced. I didn't even know it had that drain attack until I actually looked at the technique menu. But in Black, they fixed it, so it probably doesn't do as much damage or whatever, but it doesn't drain your health if you have it equipped. So I'm like, okay, let me try this out. And then, I threw it that first time and instantly fell in love. I'm like, this seems like a really amazing weapon. And then I looked into the menu, and I see, there's 3 or 4 moves. It's like, do this, and then after a dead soul bind. And I'm like, what's a dead soul bind? So then I hit XX forward X. I do the Doku stab on a random fodder enemy, and then I start mashing X, and then I can just see that jump, 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 jump.
Yep.
And his health is going down, and my health is going up. And I'm like, oh my god, I found the weapon that breaks the game, I guess. So I ended up using that for a large portion of the back half of the game, along with the Dablafro and the flails when need be. Exactly. And I guess that was another cool thing that the speedrunners taught me. Actually, two cool things that they taught me. One, I had always used the unlabored flawlessness, the level 6 wooden sword, as my go-to heavy weapon just because I assume, like, oh, well, you have to pay like 120 essence or 120,000 essence to get it all the way there. It must be by far the best weapon in the game. And they're like, no, bro, that's barely doing anything against like all these heavy enemies you're using against. You're much better using the double arrow and just pretty much using the XXXY combo or whatever. So I learned to use that. And when I was fighting, we haven't quite got there, but the next chapter they have these fiends that can shoot lasers at you. And the flails do a lot of stun to enemies. So I learned that, like, if you want to stop the laser, you just stun them. And then kicks do an incredible amount of damage. So they're like, XYY with the flails is the best way to take these dudes out. So, just like all this stuff I'm adding to my Ninja Gaiden arsenal. That was really cool.
Gotcha.
And now I have a respect for just about every weapon but the nunchucks.
Haters. I don't think any of us use the nunchucks, it seems like. Alright, well, let's do you have anything you want to say about the pyramids, Trevor? Like, besides just struggling, I mean, with the pill bugs?
The second time I went through it wasn't too bad, because I started
I thought it
using
was
the
a cool
flails.
section. I think it was probably like my favorite puzzle in the game. I thought it was a little cool section. But chapter, was it 14? That was, I think at this point, what's going on in the story?
So, you messed up Ghost Doku's plans, and pretty much, I guess you're just trying to hunt him down at this point.
Okay. And I think this is it's a short chapter, but it's very frustrating because this is the introduction of the Shadow Imp and the Ghost Fish. So the Shadow Imp is very similar to the Wolverine fiends, but they have they're like a Cyclops. They shoot eye lasers, so they'll create this, like they'll attack you up close, but if you don't focus on them, they'll jump away and start shooting this laser with their eye, and it just interrupts everything you want to do. And so it was very frustrating dealing with them. You'd fight like one of them plus two of the Wolverine fiends at the same time. So it was, I mean, we're like 14 chapters in, and this is like, honestly, it's effective, but it's super frustrating to think about. Like, we've played like 14 chapters, and this is like the first time I can think that you fight like more than one type of enemy. And I was just like, man, like they could have done, I mean, obviously because they have such a wide variety of enemies, it may not have...
Wait, what?
What?
Greg, like, there's plenty of times where you fought, like, mixes of enemies.
Is there?
Yeah.
Is there?
Yeah!
When?
Most of the freaking game.
I don't know if you're understanding what I'm saying. I'm
Only-
saying in a single encounter.
I only remember like
No,
this.
I'm saying, like, a variety of enemies, like, two different types of enemies at once.
The only time I can think about is when you fight a brown and a purple Wolverine fiend.
I remember like the soldiers, because you would have two with different weapons.
But they're both soldiers. It's like the ghouls too. Like you fight the range ghouls plus the battle axe but they're all the same enemy type. Like these were like
The monks in the monastery and the imps. Like, the imps get paired up.
Okay, yeah, the monks and the imps. I did forget about that. But I'm for real. Like I don't think it happens that often.
Maybe my memory might be tainted because of hard, and they do like to mix up the enemies a lot on hard. But
Because like
I don't know.
I mean, I guess this is the most recent. Maybe that's just like what do you call recency bias or something. But this is one of the few times where it was like, oh, the way I have to approach combat is a little bit differently, just because like they have different attack patterns. Because like even in the case of the Wolverine, the brown Wolverine fiends versus the purple imps, like they have the same exact attacks. They just different color palettes. So it was just kind of like, oh well, I can deal with them the same exact way. And now that I think about it, in the monastery, I think that was really the only other chapter where it was like that. If you're not including bosses, where like the horse.
The more that you talk about it, the more I'm thinking normal is like that.
Okay. Well, so that was just really cool, and it made me think like, dang, I wish it's popped up more, but I guess I need to play the real version of the game and play hard mode. It's not happening, so I guess I know that is actually a thing. But that was kind of tricky, and then the main thing that this game, and I was thinking that it was going to pop up in the water world because I had no context for this, but I remember when I was posting on Facebook about this game and playing it and just doing all my updates and talking with people, and people are like, wait till you get to the ghost fish. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? I already passed the water level, no ghost fish, and I'm thinking it's on hard mode. Well, this chapter, you fight the freaking ghost fish in the labyrinth, and those things suck. And this is actually when I first used the flails for the first time, besides when you first get them. But yeah, those ghost fish, they're punks. They're like these piranhas that just kind of, they float in the environment, and then once you get like within a certain range, they kind of just swarm you. And if one bites on you, you have to mash X to like get them off while you're slowly getting your blood sucked and losing life. And like you can get like 2 to 3 on you at a time. And or like you shake one off and immediately get grabbed by another one, shake it off, immediately get grabbed by another one. These things are a pain to deal with. And
so I didn't know that mashing actually did anything. I just instinctively did it, just out of habit. Like,
wow,
I was just
of
like,
course you did. Of course you did.
I'm like, I'm just thinking of like other games. I'm like, all right, so if you get an enemy on you, just think, let me just mash just to see if this does anything. But yeah, I didn't really know that it was doing anything. It just kind of was like, all right, I'm just gonna do this.
So yeah, it treats you like a smart person, and it's like, oh, you should kind of know that you need to do something.
If you play these types of games,
put this button on screen.
If you play these types of games, because like you could also like shake the stick too.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying at first. That's why I asked y'all in the chat, like,
what don't you attack in this game, though?
What don't you attack in this game?
Yeah, X and Y are the solutions to just about everything.
Nah, you guys were telling me L and A were the solutions. Just roll and jump. Just roll and jump.
Flying swallow.
Flying swallow. But yeah, man, like I got bodied by these guys. How about you, Trevor? Like when you first ran into the ghost fish, how did you feel?
Well, that was when I learned about what's it called? The Nimpo that surrounds you with the flame.
The lightning one?
Yeah.
In Inuyasha?
No, not that one. The fire one.
Oh, the sheet.
The fire scroll.
Yeah, the fire wheel. You can basically just run through all of them.
I didn't even think about... I only used that like one time. I didn't even think about that.
And I think I pretty much used that Nimpo on everything after that. And that's kind of how I cheesed my way through a lot of the enemy encounters. Even bosses. Because that Nimpo is just like...
It's pretty good. I didn't even think about that. That would be really good.
I don't even think you can upgrade it. I think I tried to use a jewel on it, but it didn't have any upgrade slots.
Yeah, you couldn't upgrade it. You could not upgrade it. How about you guys? Like, Ghostfish pretty simple now for you guys?
Yeah, it's not that bad. I mean, it's just like I said, I use the flails, and if I got kind of overwhelmed, I'd activate the fire wheel Nimpo and just kind of run in a direction and try and get as many of them as I could.
You see, if you jump but buffer the input.
Yeah, once Dante told me that, it was like, here's a hack. It was like learning how to flying swallow for the first time.
Yeah, and they're like the absolute best way to get essence. It's ridiculous how much you can get off of the ghost fish.
Alright, well, I mean, other than that, like, it's just like a labyrinth where you have to, like, just get further and further in. You're dealing with a bunch of these ghost fish, getting to this key to open this door. You open the door, and you're in the same. I think you're in the same spot that you fought Alma in, but I could be mistaken. It's just a big open pit. But you end up fighting Ghost Doku, and I know for me, much like regular Doku, this dude he blocked everything. So this was another one of the bosses that took me like at least 10 tries. I don't know what it is about Doku, but like that dude was way harder for me than Alma or just about any of the other bosses. That dude, I don't know. I kept getting hit by. Is this the one? He shoots the. No, I'm thinking of a different boss. But yeah, I was just getting bodied by him. How about you, Trevor?
So when you mentioned it earlier, like when you first fight Doku, that he used the sword and stabs you and steals your health, he never did that to me in his first form. But
Must be nice.
He basically spammed it on this encounter. Like I was
just kept sucking you off.
Like
this isn't even my final form. This isn't my final suck.
I was really about to rage quit on this one. Just because, like, the first time he stole all my health and killed me, I almost rage quit. But then I realized I only had, a few hours left to finish this game because we were gonna record yesterday, and I was like, nah, I got to get through this part.
I'm glad you stuck it through, man. What about you guys? How do you guys feel about Ghost Doku?
So I remember him being one of the easiest bosses in the game, to be honest. Like, that was just my memory of it. And pretty much on normal, that was the case. The true Dragon Sword does a ridiculous amount of damage to him, so it's not nearly like as drawn out as a fight as the previous version. But on hard, they make his little, like, fiend accompany sidekick thing the Ghost Fish. So you're constantly fighting those things off as you're trying to deal damage to that dude, and that is not fun. And that probably took me about 10 tries to actually beat it.
I'm surprised. What about you, Greg?
I didn't think it was that hard. At this point in the game, I'm just kind of like scumming it out with Nimpo whenever I do run into like a difficult issue. So, but just using Fly and Swallow a bunch. And then, so I don't know if this might just be something weird that was going on with me, or I don't know if this is the case or not, but I would use like Fire Will, and I felt like normally when you try and swing on the bosses, a lot of the attacks just, if you just randomly try and swing on them, they get blocked. But if you have Fire Will activated, even though they're taking a little bit of damage from it, they're less likely to block your attacks while you're doing that. Or at least I noticed that. I don't know if that's actually the case, but just kind of anecdotally, that's what seemed like it was happening. So that's how I got a chunk of damage in on them, and then I would back off, heal up, and then try and go back in again and do the same thing.
Gotcha. But yeah, this is a really frustrating fight for me. It seems like everybody.
What attack was he getting you with?
The grab,
the slow, like, I'm gonna throw my arm at you grab.
I was getting hit by.
Because you could just mash out.
Yeah, I didn't even know you could escape that grab until like my third or fourth try.
Yeah, I didn't either. And then it was really just like that. I tried to dodge his. I don't even know what you call it when he does the multiple swipes at a time. And I always dodged that last one the wrong way or something. Like, it was just, yeah. And he was blocking all my Nimpos as well, which at this point, like, it was one of my strategies to just, like, use my Nimpos to get, like, extra damage for free. And he was just blocking them, and that was making me more frustrated. So I was, like, trying to go harder in the pain at him, but it wasn't really working.
The super cheap way to beat him is just, like, you get a distance from him, he'll shrug his shoulders and start charging you. And if you just, like, charge the ultimate technique, he'll just run into it.
Yeah, I never used my ultimate, so... Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Chapter 15, The Core. And this is you finally getting to the palace, and you basically enter it and have to fight, I guess, waves of enemies. And I remember Dante specifically saying, he was, to me and Trevor, like, you guys need to go to the store and get all your healing things, because this will be the last, it'll be the closest you'll be to the shop. So having to do all that, get into the tower, and you fight either three or four floors of enemies?
There's a bottom floor. I think there's
it's
four.
4 floors, because you put a trophy on each floor, and they're like get progressively hard, but they're relatively simple. So I think the first floor is just the imps. I think the second floor is imps plus the pill bugs. I think the third floor is
A mix of enemies.
I think that the third floor is the pill bugs plus the fiends, and I think the fourth floor is the laser guys and the imps, or I don't remember. Yeah, this was a mix of enemies. You're right. I didn't think about this section, but in between, on the way up, they did you dirty and they threw like stairways of freaking ghostfish, which sucked.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't rotate the camera to see up the stairs. So it was like a spiral staircase that wrapped around this tower, but you couldn't turn the camera in a way that you could see. So you're just like kind of running up the stairs blind and just get grabbed by ghostfish. It was pretty awesome design, by the way. Like 10 out of 10.
Greg, was this not a healing opportunity for you?
Oh yeah, I mean at this
It
point
was like
I'm
a
just trying
super
to
healing.
get-
Like I was so thankful.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I was bad, but it's just like, dang, like this is just another example of the camera just being the camera. You feel me, Trevor? You feel me?
I do. I didn't enjoy it at all because I would leave out of that door and immediately have to change weapons.
Yep.
And
Pause it.
And then when I unpause, I always have the bad luck of getting hit by something as soon as I unpause.
Yeah. Yep.
And did y'all know the like if you get enough of those like ghost fish on you, they can knock you down?
Oh yeah.
No,
I
I
knew
didn't know
that. I knew that.
I was just wondering if y'all had as many on y'all as I did.
Yeah. Sometimes. But you get to the top of the tower, and then you end up.
Oh, before we go to the top, just out of curiosity, on the fourth floor,
Yes, I
the
did.
shadow imps get a
Yes,
new
it
ability.
happened to me.
Okay, so it did happen to you. It must not have happened to Marcus.
What is
Did it happen to you, Greg?
I don't even remember that.
I'll let Trevor
It was
explain.
too easy, you know? There's nothing.
So the shadow imps get a command grab, and when they grab you, they drag you down to hell.
They literally drag you to like the floor below it, and you have to redo all of the fight.
Wow.
That's funny. Wait, the
I forgot
the
about it, and
smaller
then it
imps
happened?
or the big one, the big crab one?
The big ones.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yep.
whenever I saw those dudes, I just used an impo. I was like, I'm gonna get it back on the fish. So, okay. You get to the top of the tower, and then you fight, like, you end up teleporting to, like, the Fiend Realm, and you fight, like, a bunch of waves of enemies. So you fight, like, first you fight the Wolverine Fiends again, the purple imp guys. Then you fight the Hydracubus, which is like the big eyeball monster with the tentacles, and it's super easy once you learn how to flying swallow. What kind of idiot would play that boss without the flying swallow? You know, and then more Wolverine.
The Yeti dude.
And then you fight the Yeti dude, which he's just as easy this time. And then you finally fight the Imp Master, I think Marbus or whatever. He has a really cool name. It's really close to an awesome name. And he is like this flying devilish looking character. And he has a dive bomb. He shoots fireballs. He creates new fiends for you to fight. he actually, I think I might have watched you play this too, Trevor. What did you think about this fight against Marq?
This one was fun. I like this fight. The only thing I didn't like was the lead up to him, because at first I thought he was going to throw every single boss that you've encountered thus far at you. But it was only 2 of them, so that was a pleasant surprise.
2 of the scrub bosses.
Because when I saw like he was throwing old bosses at you again, I almost turned the game off. I was like, there's no way I'm replaying all these bosses.
I saw that message and I'm like, yeah, he must be there at this point. And hopefully, I was hoping that you wouldn't like die to one of the 2 first bosses, because I'm like, if he dies here, he's just gonna assume, and that's gonna be it.
What about you? What about you, Trevor? I mean, I'm sorry, Greg. How do you feel about Marq?
I thought it was one of the easier boss fights at this point, like compared to like what you had to deal with earlier with like Alma and like, yeah, I think it wasn't that bad.
All right, and you, Dante?
So, on normal, he wasn't bad at all. Like, you go through the waves, and like, first is just against fiends, and you fight the boss. Then it's fiends with him throwing fireballs at you. Then it's another boss. Then it's him. On hard, he starts to summon these cat demons, which are really annoying to deal with. And I really considered, like, using a couple talismans and stuff.
What? Who are you?
But I think he robbed me of 1 talisman.
Okay.
But aside from that, it was good.
You didn't give it up for free though. You had to work for it.
Yeah, no, he wasn't having it. He's like, man, I'm the devil. You're gonna make a deal with me.
Yeah. I didn't die on him, but he was tough for me. So shout outs to you guys. I kept getting hit by the purple beams that he shot at you. I remember watching Trevor, and Trevor was getting hit by it too. And then I kept getting hit by his dive bomb command grab. I think it was a command grab.
Bro, that's the slowest one in the game.
Man,
that's nothing after Alma's dive kick.
When I tell you that I was fighting him super close, so I didn't really have as much time to react. And also, I mean, it may be chapter 5, but that camera, that camera. So, I got hit by it a couple times, so I'm not gonna lie. And then after that, then you get time to save it. And then you fight. And this walkthrough, I don't know, it's called Ultimate Alma. I don't know what the...
IGN is wrong. IGN is... If you go to the Alma fight, they just call her NC-17 Queen, which I found hilarious. But
Gotcha.
Yeah, all their boss names are just incorrect.
Okay. Well, you fight this huge, gigantic character, and you're fighting them on a floating platform that you can control. It is like the weirdest boss fight in this game. And this was one of those instances too I was talking about earlier, where I fought the boss once, died immediately, had no idea what I was doing, and I was just like, you know what? I laughed to myself. I wasn't mad, but I was just like, I just don't feel like dealing with this game right now. And I just turned it off and hopped on my computer because I just don't want to deal with this right now. Ultimately the boss isn't that difficult. You just it has weak points on his chest and arms, and you literally just go up to his chest and arms and just mash X or whatever, combo it till it dies. And it shoots these beams out of its sides and whatever, and you can just ninpo to shoot through it. So it was a really straightforward fight for me. So this was the quote unquote easiest fight for me in this game, and it was weird though, just how this boss was set up. Is this boss weird, or was this the easiest boss for you? I guess the Hydracubus is easy too, but this is up there with that as one of the easier boss fights. What do you think, Trevor?
Yeah, it was easy, but I just couldn't figure out where I was supposed to attack.
What?
Man, Dante, please don't.
Like, cause
Bro, glowy stuff all around the...
Trevor, come on. Why?
This is why we can't have
no,
nice things,
because
Greg.
I started attacking the arms, okay, and the arms he does the the shoulder shudder like he's cold, and then like after that I kept attacking the arms and nothing. And that's why I sent that message. I was like, what exactly am I supposed to be hitting? And then I moved around to the back. Because you can't, like, I don't know if it's just because of the camera angle, but you can't tell how close you are to the, like, the torso. And
I guess so, yeah. I kind of had that
You can't
same
really
issue,
control,
but I just kind of kept holding forward in the direction I needed. So, like, if, you see the area you need to hit, and you just kind of keep holding forward and pressing attack until you hit them. I mean, that's kind of what I ended up doing.
But yeah, I figured it out eventually, and the dragon sword does a lot of damage to him, so it wasn't a huge, or there wasn't a lot of difficulty to it.
What about you, Trevor? I mean, I keep doing this. What about you, Greg?
Yeah, this is probably one of the easier fights. Like to the later half of the game, I just kind of brute forced everything. Like I wasn't really trying to use a lot of technique to it. I was just kind of like, all right, well, I'm just gonna go in, and I'll take a lot of damage potentially, but I have plenty of healing items anyway, so this isn't gonna be a big deal. And I had, I think at this point, whatever the items that give you your Nimpo back, I had like at least 4 or 5 of those, and so I think it's 4. I think that's the max you get. But anyway, so I would give some damage to the boss, and then whenever I saw the lasers come up, rather than trying to dodge them, I would just start using Nimpo so I could just avoid having to dodge them altogether and just try and get some more damage on them that way.
And Dante, I'm assuming no thing for you?
Actually, I found her to be one of the harder bosses just because blocking is literally useless here. And also, I don't think the controls are good, so... yeah, it's very hard to have a clean run of this boss, aside from abusing Nimpo.
That's what I'm about.
Which... yeah, I mean, once you do that, it's fine. The second form, however, was fairly straightforward, I felt.
Gotcha. And last but not least...
Wait, were we talking about that fight in totality? Because did we talk about the second part?
The Devil Fiend?
With the skulls?
Yeah. With the skulls and everything.
Yeah, I was getting there.
When you said last but not least, I assumed.
Oh, okay, my fault.
Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, so the second part that Dante was talking about is you fight like a weird... what happens? It like falls into the lava, then kind of crawls out, deformed, right?
It's a skull monster.
I thought it's the same thing, though, ain't it?
It's like a spider with a bunch of skulls on its back, like stacked up.
It's definitely the same, like, entity or whatever, but it looks completely different.
Yeah. And this is just like, what? I just shot a bunch of arrows and impos at it. This was another, like, pretty simple boss for me. Like, you dodge, it shoots flaming skulls at you, and you just gotta dodge them, or you can shoot them with arrows or whatever to bust them up. But you pretty much, like, just shoot a bunch of the skulls on its back, and they kind of deplete, and then they regrow, and then you just attack them again, and it's just slowly crawling around, just shooting skulls at you from its head. Like, I didn't see any of its other attacks. Like, I'm looking at this thing now, and the only attack I saw was the skull ones. It didn't do the chomp or the pounce on me.
It never shot the big skull at you?
No, it shot the... Oh, wait. It's just one skull?
So, like, he'll throw all the small skulls at you, and eventually, like the big head honcho skull.
Okay, I
comes
did
towards
see
you.
that. I thought it dashed at you or something. Yeah, okay. I saw that once, but it was pretty much it did the skull, like shoot all the tiny skulls, shoot the big skull, shoot all the tiny skulls, and then I killed it.
Did he ever land on like solid ground?
No,
What?
I never saw
I
it.
thought that's what he does for the last phase, is he jumps on the.
I never saw it, or at least I don't remember. Like I took it up from range. Like I had nimpos and arrows.
Master Ninja over here.
It's like the hurricane or like the helicopter, but just me instead. Like I don't know about you guys, but man, I got a Master Ninja over here. Ask me anything about this game, I got it. Master Ninja.
Speaking of
You
which,
saw my rank. Put some respect on my name.
somehow I got Master Ninja on that level too.
Too easy, right? Too easy. All my training, I've learned. Yeah, I have no idea how I got Master Ninja, but I got Master Ninja. Okay, what about you guys? I mean, another super easy fight. You guys got anything you guys even need to say about it?
I got cheated one time when I fought it.
What happened?
I freaking used Nimpo, and that skull goes so slow that on his way, like, he goes through me. Like, he tried to bite me the first time. It didn't work. I shoot my Nimpo, damage him, but on his way back, he grabs me and causes me to use a Talisman of Rebirth. And I really thought long and hard about resetting the game right then and there. But I'm like, you know what? There's only one more chapter. I'm not going to let this phase me. So, yeah. I'm still salty about that. That happened literally 3 weeks ago.
What about you, Greg? Easy fight?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Got anything you need to add about it?
Honestly, no.
Trevor?
Just the skull thing.
Mm-hmm.
I saw, some different attacks than you did, but
Attack.
there wasn't really too much that did a lot of damage. I think actually, no, when it grabs you with its big skull, that attack does a lot of damage.
I think it is like half your life from what I read.
But before I even started this, I stocked up. Like, I was prepared. I didn't know what was going to be up these stairs on this stairway to heaven.
So wait, you went to Muramasa, went up the tower, fought Marbus, went back to town, then fought again?
Yeah, but actually, the only reason I did that was because I used all of my my small elixirs. I still had 4 of the big elixirs and 2 talismans.
Oh, that's not too bad.
That I didn't use, but I used all of my small elixirs. That was the only reason why I went back, because I didn't know how many I was going to need. And I still had
That's
money left
respectable.
too, so I was trying to blow it before I got to the final level.
And apparently still had enough time to make Master Ninja, so...
Yeah, that's what
That's
surprised
how we do
me.
it. That's how we do it. Is that it for this chapter? Are we on the last chapter? We're almost done talking about this game? Bam. Alright, so chapter 16. The final chapter, the Dark Dragon Blade. This is where you fight the big bad boss. In the volcano still. Oh crap, I clicked on the wrong page. You start off with like a platforming segment, and I finally felt what Trevor felt, because I died. It's simple platforming. I died 5 times falling into the lava.
What?
I died 5 times falling into the lava.
That's more deaths than there are jumps.
Yeah?
How?
There's like bad perspectives with the camera.
You know
Whoa,
what?
whoa.
Nah, man, we can't just
I'm
keep
not going
saying
to let
camera.
you ridicule this man. There are spots in there where you can't even see what you're jumping to.
Yep. And then it's just like you fall into the lava, then you have to run to another thing. It just it took me forever to find the platform whenever I fell. So, yeah. Did you die at this part, Trevor?
Oh yeah, man, I did a couple of leaps of faith
Right?
right into the lava, and it's like there's
Uh-huh.
no way to get back up. Like, why
Yep.
would you even create a situation where you basically just have to sit there in the lava until you die or reset?
No, there is a platform. There
Oh,
is a
there is?
platform that you can jump on. Yeah, but it just takes forever to find
Oh,
it.
I didn't even try to find it. I just did a reset.
And you know he was jumping
Nope.
the entire time.
Nope. As
So
soon
he
as
was
I
dying
fell all
super
the way
fast.
down, I just hit reset.
Yeah, so I died 5 times doing that, so it sucked.
I do think there is one bad jump in there, and like there's one where you're on a higher ledge and you have to jump to a lower ledge, and you have to use the right thumbstick to actually like figure out where you're supposed to land. But aside from that, everything's pretty much what you've been doing the entire game.
Well, still sucks. um, the but once you get there, you get to the platform. You get brought up by Rachel, and then you end up fighting the hidden emperor, who turns out is Mirai, which is your uncle, the boss you fight in the very first chapter. He was the one behind
Yes,
all
and you
this.
also pull out the dark dragon blade from down there.
Oh yeah, how could I have forgotten? The Dark Dragon Blade, and you fight Mirai, and he's just the ninja. He has throwing stars. He has a charge, combo, grab. He can teleport. He can call a snake to attack you. He has all types of ridiculous attacks. But ultimately, like I don't. He doesn't seem that difficult. Like the teleport thing was a little bit tricky. Just not that I got hit, but just like trying to get away from it. I mostly got hit by the ninja stars, I think, and his charge. But when I figured out you could do your flying swallow when he did his charge, then it was a lot easier to deal with. I don't get me wrong, I did get hit, but I had enough healing items and Nimpo recovery things that it was just like a war of attrition, and I was able to kill him. So, what about you, Trevor? How do you feel about this final boss?
I don't even remember this boss.
It's too easy.
I turned on the fire wheels, and I basically had that going the entire fight, and just went to town on him. I didn't care if he hit me. Every time he hit me and I got maybe less than half of my health, I just popped a couple of elixirs and went back to work.
What about you guys? Easy?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much how I played it. Like Trevor did, just kind of activated Fire Wheel. So I would try and do whatever damage I could with Flying Swallow, dodge for a little bit, activate Fire Wheel, go back in, heal up, go back in, and just kind of finish it like that.
Dante. Easy?
He did more damage to me than most of like my final runs on bosses, but I also only fought him once because I was like, well, this is the final boss. I don't care if I use all my stuff. So, from what I can tell, he was probably an easy boss, but he still did cost me more potions than most other things in this game.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Is it a
Yeah, the
worthy
second he
final
threw
boss?
out the dragon,
you guys
though.
think? Like, if you could replace any fight, would you? I'm guessing for you, Dante. Like, if you were to say, okay, the last boss fight should be the most difficult, would it have been the Alma fight for you?
I'd say Alma is the most, like, Alma 2 is definitely my most difficult boss, and I think most people would say that's probably the hardest one. I was fine with Mirai being who he was. I was like, well, the game's already challenging enough. I don't mind if they throw you a softball at the end.
It just seems like the last couple of bosses were pretty easy, though. Like Marbus, and then the two forms of the Vigor Emperor.
See, the thing about Marbus, though, is if you die during that fight, I don't think you'd have that much patience for it. So I think they had to make him a little easier, just because there's literally like 10 minutes of lead up until you get to the actual fight with him.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they were also kind of throwing a softball there. It's like, well, they fought these two sub-bosses, so let's make him pretty doable. And also, not everybody knows to go back to town right before they go to that tower.
Gotcha. What about? I mean, do you feel the same way, Greg?
You mean about the last few fights being?
I mean, not
pretty,
necessarily with me. Just like, do you feel like, are you okay with the last boss being not a pushover, but easier? He's not a pushover.
He's not a pushover, but he like you guys are saying, he's probably one of the easier fights. I don't know, and I don't really know how they could balance it at that point, because I guess at this point in the game, I mean, you should still probably have a decent amount of healing items and stuff. Like most of your stuff's leveled up, so it just kind of depends on, I guess, how prepared you are for it. And then I guess at that point, if you've made it this far into the game, I mean, shouldn't be too crazy, but yeah, I mean, it would have been nice if it was a little bit more challenging, but I kind of respect the decision to be like, we're not gonna like overwhelm you at this point. Like, you got this far, you know.
That's crazy to hear you guys say that, where it's like, it's the design decision to make it difficult and like obfuscate, or like just make this part more difficult. But then you're like, they've thrown enough at you. Let's make it easy at the end. It's just really weird to hear you guys say that.
They'd have to do so much to make it unfair. They'd have to literally do a lot of really nasty stuff to make it feel like, oh, I'm down to my last potion or whatever.
What if like something really simple, and not necessarily simple, but like maybe fighting like the final boss has like twice as much health or something like that. I don't know. Or like different forms of the same boss, like, because you fight two versions of Alma in this game and two versions of Doku. What if you fought like, I mean, this is your second time fighting Mirai?
Just back to back?
No, well, yeah, like you weaken him, he laughs, throws something to the side, and now he's stronger. Whatever. Like, not necessarily, like, I'm not trying to play developer or whatever, but just like...
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there are definitely versions where they could have, like, made, like, a Berserker Mirai or something like that, where, I don't know, his defense goes up or his offense goes up or something.
Does that boss encounter change at all on the higher difficulties, or?
I think he's the one boss on hard that doesn't have anybody accompanying him, if I recall. Everybody else has, like, fiends or whatever.
Gotcha.
But I'm pretty sure that one stayed pretty much the same.
Gotcha. Is it, like, the same type of fiend, or do the fiends get harder as you get further in the game? Like the not harder, but like
so the fiends are different for every boss. Okay. Against Mirai, you have the white ninja.
Okay.
Against the horsemen, you have the mages, which is also
so they like level up as you go.
Yeah, like Durku has samurai, and pretty much you're fighting harder and harder fiends. And one of the small things I just want to mention real quickly was during the Marbus fight, you fight this one enemy called the Berserker, which I don't really know how to describe them. They're like a white version of the Clawed Imps, and their little gimmick is they can like pretty much slide command grab you, and that is super frustrating. So I thought that was kind of cool that they introduced a new enemy as late as Chapter 15, potentially.
Cool.
Yeah. But no additional gimmicks for Mirai, even on hard.
Okay. Are you okay with it, Trevor?
I think so, because at this point in the game, I guess they knew, since this is the final boss, people were going to use like everything in their arsenal to take him down, and so I think it really didn't matter how difficult they made him, if that makes any sense.
People were going to finish it no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, people were just going to use whatever they had left over, all their talismans, all their elixirs.
Gotcha. Well, we finished this game. Don't ask me anything about the story of this game. I have no idea. This is the one game where it was just like, I'm focusing all my input on getting passed through this game, that I just put all the story beats to the side.
So
story-wise,
essentially the end of the game. Wait, we got to at least say the ending, right?
Yeah. I'm saying, okay.
Well, we missed one story beat before the final boss battle.
The game over. Fill us in.
So basically, when what was he called before he unmasked himself?
Like
Uh,
was it Dark Disciple or no? Dooku's the Dark Disciple. He's the Vigorian Empire, or the Hidden Emperor.
Like before
I
he
guess.
does that, he takes the dark dragon sword, and he basically tells Gamoff, what does he say? You've done a good job, or something like that. And, and Gamoff,
You've done well,
and
Gamoff.
Gamoff immediately notices that's like a farewell, and not necessarily just a pat on the back. And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And he looks around, and next thing you know, his head's rolling.
His body disintegrates into blood, and there's just a coat there.
It be like that, man.
But Dante, you were saying something about Gamoff, like as far as because he was in other games, right?
So, Gamoff really was a mysterious person to me. Like, every time I play through this game, I'm like, man,
Who is this Riddler?
he's in
fool?
like 5 or 6 cutscenes. Huh?
I said, who is this Riddler fool?
Yeah, he's just like this dude in the background, and then you're like, what's his purpose? And you don't even really know. He kind of just exists to be killed at the end of the game for the most part. Apparently, in Ninja Gaiden Sigma, I believe, he's a boss fight. I think I read that at some point. So, I can't check that right now. But I'm pretty sure they made him into a boss fight, because Gamoff is pretty much like the Waluigi of the Ninja Gaiden universe, and people just love to hate on him, and they gave him a moment to shine on the PS3.
Rip Xbox users. But overall, like, just going back a little bit, story-wise.
And the end of the game, pretty much you kill Mirai, and pretty much you return back to the village, put the dragon jewel back on your friend's grave, and you turn into a falcon and fly away. And then credits roll.
Fitting. So he learned that at the very end of the game. He couldn't do it before, right?
There's a lot of... I don't really actually know the end of the game super, super well. I can't remember if Ryu's supposed to be dead, or if he got revived and he's...
So, but basically what we're saying is this story is nonsensical. It's just all over the place. Is that what we're saying? Do you think...
That is not...
Huh?
That's definitely not... It's pretty straightforward.
Are you serious?
There's not that much that happened. Like, literally,
Yeah.
your entire thing is, hey, I need to get revenge on this dude. Let me get revenge
But
on
I mean,
this
just
dude.
the way the setting is, and just like how ridiculous and like fantastical the setting is, and like I mean, it's a video game.
If you want to say the design is incohesive, but the story is actually like pretty just... It's almost enslaved.
Does anybody know the point of Rachel?
To power up Alma.
Okay.
Eye candy.
Outside of that,
Eye candy.
Like, I mean, that's literally it. Like, Alma is a greater fiend. Her sister has the same bloodline or whatever. Dooku steals her to power up Alma, and that's why you end up fighting awakened Alma.
Alma Rising. You got anything story-wise, Greg? Like, how do you feel about it? I have nothing.
I'm kind of in the same boat.
Okay.
I couldn't even tell you what really happened, other than like just kind of the baseline of it. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't think we're here for that at all.
Okay,
So.
just
I don't
wondering.
think that's a problem.
Just wondering, because I was like, I know Dante is like, I'm not picking at him because I'm not picking at him like that, like a bully. I know he really likes the game, and I didn't know if he could provide any further insight or any additional.
I'm not saying it's like a deep and compelling
I know
story.
that.
I'm just
I
saying
know
like
that.
it's pretty like cohesive as long as you just
Pay
view
attention.
cutscenes.
I mean, I viewed them, but it is just like, I'm telling you, like, there was a lot of deep breathing probably during a lot of those cutscenes for me. Just like, okay, I got through it. Okay, drink some water.
I'm not holding it against anybody for not paying attention to it, because I'm like, nobody's here for that. For
I mean,
real.
like in like my only other game that I could think of that are like this that I played is what Ninja Gaiden or Metal Gear and Bayonetta. And don't ask me anything that happens in those stories because they're both ridiculous over the
Some
top.
people will say Metal Gear is the greatest story of all time.
Well,
They would probably be right.
So do the
Well,
Ninja Diaries add anything to the story at all? Like I collected them, but I didn't read them.
I thought those were pretty
I
good.
read some of them, but it was just kind of. It seemed like it was like background information, or like it was like not even background, but just like world building, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much like an audio log without the audio,
Yeah.
which I guess would mean it's a diary.
Paper log, visual log. All right. Do we have any other?
There's there was one really good one though. So the Black Spider Ninjas, like kind of the main antagonistic ninja clan, were also after the Dark Dragon Blade. I'm pretty sure that's the one they were after. And I think it's the dude that you it's on chapter 15 when you're heading down those giant set of steps. There's a ninja there, and if you read his log, he's like, "Man, our leader sent us to do all of this, but the only reason was apparently the Dark Dragon Blade has some type of marrow or something that's supposed to make tea really good, and he's like a tea connoisseur. So that was literally why he sent the Black Spider Ninjas to get the Dark Dragon Blade in the first place.
He's thirsty.
Yeah, thirsty. So there's some pretty good stuff in there if you just read through those diaries.
I gotcha. I read some of them, but it was like I don't know if I need to read this or whatever, and I kind of didn't care. Also, I just wanted to get through it. So I definitely was not in the right mindset to play this. I felt like I played this game like out of duty / obligation. I tried to go in with an open mind, but I don't think I was fully successful doing it. But I did complete it, gave it a fair shake. I think this game is it is not for me. I think it is a good. I'm not going to argue it's a good game or whatever. It is my.
Trevor, you want to step in? He's letting you down pretty bad right now.
This, like I said, I still feel the same way as the first episode. I like a lot more than I dislike in this game. Like the parts that I would have loved in this game, like the platforming, I think a ninja platforming game would be amazing. Probably the reason why I like Assassin's Creed. But
a game built around that, though, not just featuring it.
Well, I mean, the combat's really good in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Like the animation and everything is spot on, but I think that if it kind of added that to it, like where you had a chance to use your platforming, because there are spots where they intentionally added platforming to kind of show off that you are a ninja and you have you have ninja agility and all that,
like that time trial sequence.
Yeah, but it doesn't, because of the camera angle and other technical difficulties or technical
limitations. Probably
they can't fully address that.
Well, I don't want to say limitations, because like they were probably fine when it came out, but the industry and the way they do things now has evolved. So going back, it's kind of just like, it's kind of rough. It's not necessarily, it was probably okay in the moment, but playing it now, it's like, this could be better,
I still think this game has better mobility than just about any game on the market.
That's not what we're not arguing like the game isn't fluid or smooth. We're saying that the camera is I
don't think that's really the case. That, like, if you go to any other action game and you ask me to do these very technical jumps, I feel like Ninja Gaiden does it better than most of them.
Technical jumps like to land on a platform.
Yes.
I don't think that's what this game is like. I'm not saying it does it. Okay, you can do it in this game, but that's not like the main aspect of this game. So like, I don't think that the game was built like you can do it, and it's like something that they try to showcase, but I don't think the game is built to do that. So I think it's handled sloppily in this game, not in a like
Uh,
it's competent and it was probably amazing in the moment, but I feel like now it's like we do things this way, so going back it's kind of like this is kind of rough.
I fundamentally disagree.
No, I agree with that because like if they have to put that kind of gameplay in there simply because you are a ninja. Like if they didn't, you would kind of be like, okay, all you do is just fight. You don't necessarily have any ninja agility or anything like that. But then at the same time, a game completely surrounding you traversing stuff would just be Assassin's Creed.
Well, that was pre
See, but Assassin's Creed is so simplistic with its platforming and stuff. It's literally just like, let me hold R and A and I will auto jump all of this stuff. And they kind of remove the technical aspect.
But there's not
regard.
necessarily any technicality in Ninja Gaiden either. It's running on a wall by holding A or tapping A to wall jump. Like that's really it. And I'm not saying like that's fine. Like it's mostly you're there for the animations and how smooth and fluid it looks, and it looks smooth and fluid. But that like.
I would agree with you if it wasn't implemented into combat, though, where you can, let me run up this wall and then do a combo starting with that, or
I see what you're
let
saying
me do this
now.
wall run and do a flying swallow.
Like it's a part of the environment. Like when you're in combat, like the combat and environment are kind of melded together in this game, whereas like in Assassin's Creed, it's not.
It's combat and then there's platforming. It's not both.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you don't like run up a wall and be like, okay, I'm already halfway through this fight. Let me like jump up on this thing and
besides
take
like
somebody out in
stealth
Assassin's
stuff,
Creed.
but
Yeah, you might start with it. You might like be like, I'm on this perch. Let me kill this first guy like this. But you're not doing like a wall jump to kill somebody after that.
yeah,
I get what you're saying. Like I think that's cool, and I think I never actually did any of that stuff, so I think that's what makes the game fluid like you say it is. I think the combat itself is pretty fluid. It's just the platforming by itself that is not as fluid, and I thought that's what we were referring to. So that's what I was referring to. And I do think the camera is a big, like, again, across all three of those things, that is something that kind of is an obstacle for me personally. It's not necessarily like game breaking, but it is game affecting in a way that I don't necessarily want it to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure the camera is an issue. I think you just get used to kind of like babying it around, that it doesn't necessarily become a huge deal, but it can come up in like clutch times where it's like, wow, if the camera was in this position and I didn't have to keep just right triggering it all the time, then, you know, maybe I would be able to avoid this a little bit easier. Or if it didn't get caught in this corner when I was trying to, you know, maybe like try and reposition myself in combat, then it wouldn't be as big of an issue. But
we'll just have to play Ninja Gaiden 2, where you have a fully controllable right stick.
Yeah.
That's faster, and then get your thoughts on that. Right, Marcus? Right, Marcus?
I'm crying inside.
Oh, the gameplay changes, the gameplay innovations that you've requested for all of these years, they're finally going to be there. And other stuff. And more.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't there like a lot more dismemberment in Ninja Gaiden 2?
Oh, it's a whole mechanic, and they think the ninjas in this game are dishonorable. Wait until they find out about suicide ninjas, and all ninjas are suicide ninjas. Oh.
What do you think?
Hey, but you get recharging health, you get a camera, you get a more linear play space, you get auto weapon switching or whatever, or quick weapon switching. See, all of that and more. It's practically your game of the year at this point.
Yeah, what about you, Trevor?
I'm glad to say I completed this game, because after you said it's like one of the most difficult games, I mean, sure, it's fun. Like as far as the difficulty is fun.
Ninja Gaiden is
I
fun.
just don't have the patience to.
That's the best way of putting it. Like, we didn't necessarily play it in the optimal way, me and Trevor anyways, right? With having a deadline and like...
Granted, if we didn't have a deadline, you guys would have never...
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. But like, just, it felt like we were always crunching. And like, I know specific for me, I got a bunch of real life projects that I had been working on, like house stuff, like building a porch and building a chicken coop, and it was the little time that I got to play video games. This would not have been the game that I play after working hard to like relax. It was like quite the opposite. So a lot of times I was dreading like, oh, I'm gonna go play some video games, and then I'm like, oh wait, I'm gonna go play Ninja Gaiden. Crap. And then I gotta get in that mindset. So it's just like it made me realize I enjoy playing games for fun and for enjoyment. And this game, I did not necessarily. It wasn't a chore, but it wasn't like the reason I go to games. This this game wasn't scratching that reason or checking off that box for me. So I think it is a good game, but it is not a game that I enjoyed playing, and is not a game that I would play again.
I do want to thank both you and Trevor for being such good sports. Just so the audience knows, typically we try to find games that are pretty much 16 hours or less. Like, normally we try to definitely cap it at around 20. I assumed that, like, I knew going in that How Long to Beat was probably going to be a little off. But I assumed they would just, like, either one quit or two be like, hey, I played enough of this, I'm good. But they actually played through the entire game despite going over the 20-hour time frame. So thank you both.
Yeah, I think my playthrough was like, I think I was like 23 and a half hours, and then Trevor was like, man, I'm only at like hour 16 or something.
No, I was at hour 20, like at the end of chapter 14, I think.
No, but I'm saying like when I had posted, I think I don't think you were 20 hours yet. I think you were like, man, I've only been playing for 16 hours. And you were like on chapter 12.
Yeah, something like that.
And you're like, how, four more chapters left. How could it, and then what was your final playtime?
About
like 21
something. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the second time Dante's had us play long games.
What was the
Phoenix Wright?
Oh, Phoenix Wright. Hey, you guys could quit at any time. It's not like I'm gonna be like standing over your shoulder watching you play DS games.
No, I'm not a quitter. I just get really mad about it. Not really mad about it, but I just like, man,
why does he keep suggesting good games with gameplay?
Well, that is a way of looking at it. I've heard people call this a good game.
One of the best action games.
Yeah, actually, 58th highest ranked game of all time, if I recall, our first podcast.
Oh, well, I didn't vote in that. They didn't ask me. All right, I think
second best Xbox game from the OG Xbox.
Is after Halo?
If we're throwing out stats.
Probably Halo 2. That's probably the highest rated game I would think on Xbox.
A real man's game. Halo 2. All right. We've gone a while. This might actually. It's a long game. You got any closing thoughts, Greg? I mean, I guess we'll do that. What's your closing thoughts with Ninja Gaiden Black?
I still enjoy my time with it. Still feel pretty strongly about it being a really good game. Still seems like it holds up the test of time. I mean, mechanically, there's some questionable things, but still a really enjoyable game, I think.
All right. Dante, what are your closing thoughts for Ninja Gaiden Black?
It's pretty much like practically the greatest game of all time. It's not quite the greatest game of all time. It's like top 20
for you,
for me. Yeah, and I do think the mechanics, for the most part, hold up. The camera isn't always great, but I don't really have too big of an issue with it. And story, I mean, who really cares? As far as like mechanics go, I really can't think of I can't say I can't think of a single game that does it better, but it's like that and Devil May Cry 3 are the absolute
Pinnacles.
Epitome of the genre for me. They kind of define the genre. And I think Bayonetta does it well. I think the DMC reboot does it well. I'm thinking the DMC 5 is going to do amazing.
Can I ask a quick question? Not I don't want to go into a huge tangent, but like,
sure.
If you're saying the genre, what exactly does DMC 3 do that this game doesn't do that helps establish or distinguish this genre?
DMC 3 is kind of the progenitor for the modern version of these type of games. So Bayonetta is highly based off of Devil May Cry 3.
Okay.
Devil May Cry 3 has pretty much like not fully cancelable combos, but most things you can cancel out of animations. Uh-huh. It has real-time weapon switching with both like 2 primary weapons and 2 like secondary weapons, and just kind of how the fluidity of that game works directly applies to the modern Bayonettas and Platinum games.
Because I mean, I think so. Some of the things that we said this game kind of made it seem like it was not as modern, or like it was a step behind. Was like having to go to the pause menu to switch your weapons, healing, and just
Well, not even that, because Ninja Gaiden 2 addresses a lot of that stuff, but it's mostly like the fluidity of the game and how you can cancel directly into a different animation. Like, if you're doing triangle, triangle, triangle in DMC, you can do something to get out of that.
Sure.
Very easily.
But there's more fluidity in the actual traversing in combat in this game, but in Devil May Cry, it's more so in the actual fighting in combat, right?
Well, think of it this way. Ninja Gaiden is cohesive in its combat, whereas Devil May Cry is always fluid no matter what you do.
Okay.
So, logically speaking, like, what Ryu does makes a lot more sense because he finishes all of his animations. And this is something I kind of like. This is something that's always, I don't want to say bothered me about like the fighting genre, but a lot of the fighters I like don't have that many cancelable techniques per se. Aside from Marvel, I'm really big into Marvel in some ways. But there's something about canceling animations that always has rubbed me the wrong way. So I've kind of liked, I really like how NetherRealm games look for the most part. There's just something about them.
Gotcha.
And this kind of has that type of modus operandi as far as its design decision for how to do combat. And I think the greatest like despair of this genre is that it pretty much consolidated into the Devil May Cry style of things, whereas I think there should be both.
So this is like the more technical, where Devil May Cry is the more stylish?
I wouldn't even call it more technical, because Devil May Cry, if you get into like frames and stuff, people get crazy, especially with Devil May Cry 4. It's just, this one has a good balance of offense and defense, whereas DMC is mostly like evading and offense.
Okay, so maybe more balanced.
You're not watching your enemies quite as much as you do in this game.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And I guess I should say that this kind of evolved into Dark Souls and to some extent.
So you can still get some of that taste of the thing you like. It's just maybe not in the genre.
Yeah, Dark Souls isn't as combat heavy, but it has the deliberate animations. It has the, hey, this is almost a Punch-Out-esque game where I'm watching for the tells of the boss, and that's how I actually get through this fight rather than just doing sick combos.
All right, what about you, Trevor?
It's fine.
Back of the box squad.
Like, I probably wouldn't play it again, honestly, but it's fine. Like, I don't know what I was playing back in 2004 when this game came out. Was it 2004 or 2005?
I think it was 2005.
5 for the
I don't know
Black.
what I was playing around this time, but it definitely wasn't anything like this. This wouldn't have been my pick to rent from Blockbuster.
Back of the box quote. All right. Well, I think we said enough about this game.
One small thing, since we always do it with every other game, like, what would you want to see in a sequel? Just real quick. Or what do you think a sequel to this game would be?
I mean,
trash is not an answer.
I think other games do what I would like to see in a sequel. I think a sequel to this game would probably be like more ridiculous and over the top and just more crazy stylish, like finishing moves and more cool environments. I think one of the environments and just the variety of enemies you fight is really cool. I personally would have liked to see them improve some of the mapping and just how that is marked, and also tweaking the camera to, I mean, ideally the sequel comes out 2-3 years later, so it's going to be maybe a little bit more of a modern feel to it. You know, in 2018 it'd be 10 years, 11 years later versus being 13 years. So maybe it's more in line with games that were coming out in 2008, which would have slightly better camera and just swimming. And I think even the open worldness, especially if it came out nowadays, like within the past 3-4 years, it'd be blown out and be out of control, like in a good way. Like it would be I think an open world, it'd be way more open world and just like quick travel between locations. So that could be cool. I would like to see that over like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, you know, where it's kind of like you have this mission, and I think it could be potentially cool to like play a action adventure or action game of this genre where you're in a big open world and you can kind of go wherever. But I guess maybe that's starting to get into Dark Souls territory. I'm not sure. I haven't played it. But what about you guys, Dante, since you pinned the question?
So, I mean, this is kind of a weird question since I know what a sequel to this game looks like. But if I had my like ideal pie in the sky sequel, it would pretty much be the same game for the most part. Work on the camera a little bit. They should have weapon switching, and I think just a couple streamlining of things so you're not quite like in the menus quite as much. Aside from that, that's really it.
Gotcha. Quick question: when did the sequel come out?
I believe Ninja Gaiden 2 was 2008. Let me quickly check that. Could be 2009 though. 2008.
All right. What about you, Trevor?
I guess I'd have to say Prince of Persia. That's what That's what I'd want out of another Ninja Gaiden game.
Are we talking like Prince of Persia PS2 style or Prince of Persia 2008? Because if it's the latter, it could literally not be any more opposite of this game. The game where you literally can't die.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
That's a good idea. I just don't want to die. Ninja Gaiden without dying and good camera angles.
You press a button and Ayane saves you from every situation.
What about you, Greg?
As far as what I would want out of the sequel,
Assuming you don't know what you know about the sequel.
Not having to go back into the menu to switch weapons, having mission mode at the start of the game without having to finish it.
Unlockable difficulties at the start of the game.
Yeah, that would also be pretty good. Let's see. Maybe bigger scale boss battles. And I don't know, I think that's pretty much the main things I would want to, and a better camera, but I think that's probably the things I would look for in a
I
sequel.
thought this camera was the best thing since sliced bread.
No.
You right? Alright, man. Only the best games get long episodes, so we've gone pretty
right.
long, so I think it's about time to wrap it up before it becomes the longest episode. Meaning it's the best game, which it's not.
Yeah.
It's still
I was about to say
stealing time
longest
from your
episode
life.
for the best
Or
game.
you get a third episode.
Oh.
Me and Trevor will be the third episode. Talk about Ninja Gaiden. Hot takes.
The Trump tapes of Ninja.
All right.
We should make them go through mission mode next.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, we could put that on the list technically.
No, Greg. Oh wait, actually, before I said that, our next game is my choice for the month of August. It is Catherine for the 360. I was really, really, really hoping that the remaster would be out by the time that we had made when we made these lists, but I don't think that it will be out until, I'm looking it up right now. It's supposed to come out this year, but I don't think winter 2018. So when we made these lists and we did our voting, I was hoping that it was going to come out because it hadn't released a date, but it's not going to be till later. So unfortunately, it's not as timely as I would have hoped it to be, but that is the next game, Catherine. If you're playing along, that is the game we are playing. Greg, where can people... One, do we have any questions? No. And where can people send questions if they want to?
You guys can hit us up at misscheckpoints@gmail.com for any show feedback. If you've got any suggestions, if you just want to get in the conversation of what we're playing, you can hit us up there.
And where can people hit you up at?
I'm around. You guys can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/boomboxhero, Twitter at twitter.com/boomboxhero, and on Twitch at twitch.tv/xdrdmagnegrox.
Where can people find you at, Dante?
Well, people can find me and a lot of other Ninja Gaiden speedrunners at twitch.tv/awakencloud.
I see you. What about you, Trevor? Where can people find you?
You can find me on Xbox Live or PlayStation Network at Lyric Unsung.
Cool.
Or check out his epic Ninja Gaiden archive at Mixer/Lyric Unsung.
Yeah, that too.
That too. You guys can find me in my backyard. I'm building a chicken coop. And that's it. Any last comments for Ninja Gaiden? Any last comments? Going once? Going twice? Alright, cool. Well, this was a long episode. I think this is officially our longest episode. We are Missed Checkpoints, and we are out. Peace.